To order. Everyone please stand, turn your attention to the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be nice, I'll throw bricks.
The school board will convene to closed session tonight to consider the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, to consider full-time aide positions, part-time aide positions, elementary secretary position, school psychologist position, middle school special education teaching position. So we have a guest speaker tonight, and I will let Mr. Gupke introduce.
Yeah, Sue Powers is from Door County Public Health, asked her to come tonight to talk about school reopening in the fall and the system, her ideas for that. So you can stand up or you can speak from there, whatever you
Mr. Kressbach, you've indicated you want to speak on that. Are you here with Sue?
Yes, I'm here with Sue, yeah, together.
Okay, you can stand, you can pull a chair forward, whatever is comfortable for you.
I'll stand up for the moment. I have a soft voice and people have trouble hearing me, so maybe this will help. Thanks for the opportunity to give you some of the public health perspective. And last week I sent some documents to Mr. Lutke, and I think that was Wednesday, and promptly on whatever Thursday or Friday, the CDC then sent out the school guidance. So in typical COVID fashion, things changed overnight. And that illustrates one of the points I wanted to make, and I hope you can build some flexibility into whatever plan you begin the school year with, because if we've learned nothing, or at least this is what I've certainly learned this year with COVID, is the constant in all of this is change. We can count on things will change. And, I don't think we should be so cavalier at this point to think we're in the clear and that we wouldn't have a surge in cases. Certainly, things are looking good at this point, but that change could occur. One of the CDC recommendations, and hopefully you had a chance to at least glance at the recommendations, is that you monitor community transmission and things like vaccination coverage, occurrence of outbreaks, screening testing, to guide decisions on layers of prevention strategies. And one of the big points they made is that if you decide to remove prevention strategies, remove a layer, that you do those one at a time and then assess the effect on COVID cases. So this year is looking a lot different than last fall, thank goodness. We have a vaccine, and we also have about 16 months worth of knowledge of how COVID behaves and how to deal with this, and some experience. So as I said, the current situation, disease activity has leveled off. In Door County in June, we just had 10 confirmed cases. That is, oh my gosh, contrast that with last October and November. We had 589 cases and 599 cases, respectively, for those months. So far in July, we have less than 5 cases. Another parameter to watch is the testing positivity rate, and right now this is low. This is really good. Trends across the state in the last week, it's increased to a high level. 15 counties moved into the high category. Door County remains at a moderate level. Across the state, there's a 128% increase in cases this week. And across the country, that's the trend. 37 states are seeing an increase in cases in the last 14 days. For an example, in Tennessee, they have a 38% vaccination rate, and they saw a 475% increase in cases in the last 14 days. So is it the Delta variant? That is certainly one of the factors. Experts predicted weeks ago that we'd be seeing more of that, and we certainly have. The CDC shows an increase in this variant, and they estimate up to 51% of the cases are attributed to the Delta variant. In Wisconsin, testing for genomic sequencing showed that 50% of the samples were the Delta variant out of what they tested. So not every sample is tested for variants. We know that variants spread more rapidly and easily. The Delta variant, it's not known yet if it's more severe. So the other thing experts are telling us is to expect a seasonal variation in disease activity level. So what that means is, viruses usually increase in the fall, flu, colds. We're looking, that could happen with COVID. At present, all of the United States vaccines are effective against preventing disease with the Delta and other variants. Variants could emerge that aren't covered by the vaccine. We encourage everyone to get vaccinated. That's the #1 public health strategy right now. So getting vaccinated prevents cases and lessens the opportunity for the virus to change and mutate and create other variants. On the state website, there's a lot of nice graphics as to percentage vaccinated, and they even break it down by school district. I looked this afternoon, and 56% of the population living in the geographic area of Sevastopol School District have received at least 1 dose of the COVID vaccine. So that doesn't mean necessarily students and staff, it's just those who live in the geographic area. So I encourage you to look at that website for more information. Overall, 66% of Door County residents have received at least 1 dose, and 64% are fully vaccinated. The younger age group has a lesser percentage of being vaccinated, so 34% of the 12 to 15-year-olds and 40% of the 16 to 17-year-olds have received at least 1 dose of vaccine. So every time I look, that's going up a little bit. So we're getting there, but it's slow. So what are those CDC recommendations, and what should we be focusing on? Masking for those who are not fully vaccinated is really important, and it's a proven strategy to prevent spread of infection. And really last year, all the Door County schools had great success with in-person, keeping in-person school going much of the time, and masking was one of the strategies. The CDC has decreased the recommendation for distancing. They say 3-foot distancing in schools is good, combined with mask wearing for those who aren't vaccinated. And then all the other recommendations, good ventilation system, hand washing, respiratory etiquette, stay home when sick, get tested, and they certainly recommend contact tracing, including isolation and quarantine. Continue the cleaning, disinfecting, and prevention strategies are most critical to those who are not fully vaccinated. And then the last thing I'll just comment on, last year, school cases, total cases in staff or students for the 4 mainland districts, according to our data off the school tracker, was a total of 99 confirmed cases. And as far as school-related transmission, there were 25 cases of that. So those were people that we determined, or you helped us determine, were close contacts and then went on to test positive. For Sevastopol, there was 15 confirmed cases with 13 cases of what we felt was school transmission for last year. So I'm happy to entertain any questions.
So if you had 25 cases school transmitted out of the total student population in Door County,
Oh gosh, I'm sorry, I don't know.
so it's less than 1%.
Off the top of my head. It's yeah, it's
Plus
not,
1%.
it's certainly not bad.
Right.
That, to my
And
point.
that was the height, and that's during the height of the COVID epidemic.
And that was with people masking and distancing, cohorting.
So would you consider 1% a public health issue?
Yes.
So if 1% of the students have influenza, would that be a public health issue?
It would certainly be something we watch.
Okay.
But, I mean, I agree with what Gerald just said there.
It's time.
The questions are really for the board.
This is the
It's
time that
not
the board
audience.
will.
Okay,
It's just-
apologies,
it's
fair
okay.
enough.
Yep.
So let me clarify. Flu is certainly different than COVID.
Amongst children?
So cases in children are typically less severe, right? That's
And-
what you're getting
and
at.
often are not even,
Often
no.
are asymptomatic.
Right.
There have been very few deaths across the country and none in Wisconsin. There have been some hospitalizations, and of kids that get hospitalized, 2/3 of those are ICU hospitalizations. There is a lot we're still learning about long-term consequences of COVID. There's a syndrome called multisystem inflammatory syndrome that's most common in children if it's going to occur, but it does occur in adults. So yes, COVID is less severe generally in children. From my point of view, I'm also concerned about that they can certainly spread it, whether they're symptomatic or not.
I understand, and I'm not trying to be argumentative, but if we look at the entire picture, you're coming at it from the public health point of view, from a health, okay. Now let's look at the entire student experience. We all would agree that requiring students, especially now young kids under the age of 12, because they can't be vaccinated, to wear masks daily from 8 in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon or 3 o'clock when they go home. Now, it's just as a side editorial comment, after about an hour wearing a mask, it's like breathing through a petri dish, correct? It's a warm, dark, moist area where bugs grow. Now, and so I said that to one person one day, and they said, well, you're breathing your own bugs. That's not correct, because the microns size of viruses are often much smaller than what is able to be done with a mask. So they are actually developing a petri dish environment for other bugs in the environment, which are coming into the mask, and it can potentially breed in a short period of time in a dark, moist, warm area. Okay. So, but putting that aside, that's just on the scientific side. On the human side, I'm certain there's not much evidence out there, and I don't know if you consider it a public health issue, but I would think it's a much issue that children wearing masks all day long has certain psychological and emotional negative effects. So in the whole balance, what a school board has to do, I would think, is to look at the health side and the psychological side, and then make the determination of what's best for the students. You know, we can't look at it totally from a health side, or we get in trouble. We can't look at things totally from a psychological side, or we get in trouble. We can't look at it myopically through any side, through any lens. We must look at it from the entire point of view. So help me understand then why we would want to continue that, considering I would think we're in what they would call the what's the phase where we're supposed to that the bug reaches a point where there's so many people the bug hits. Herd immunity. I was suspecting Door County, since about 70% of the population has had the injections. Aren't we at herd immunity? I mean, if we're not at herd immunity at 75%, then I don't know if does herd immunity ever exist.
So I'm going to start with the first thing you talked about, the masking.
Mm-hmm.
It is certainly recommended, and you certainly have a good point, Mr. Moore, that when a mask
Come on,
gets,
Jerry.
okay, when a mask gets wet, that it's not effective. And you
When a
know,
mask is what?
when a mask gets
I
wet.
think we have to ask you to speak a little bit louder so the
What-
camera can hear you too.
No,
When
it's
a mask
not.
gets-
It's not effective by itself. But if you've been breathing all day and there's bugs from outside in that mask, and I mean, I
She's
just.
agreeing with you. She's
Oh,
Okay,
you're
let's
agreeing
let
with
her-
me.
agreeing with you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said it's not infective. Okay.
Yes, and it is recommended at that point that the mask be changed. So for, correct masking and effective masking, correct fitting, and if it becomes wet or soiled, change the mask.
Okay.
So we'll start with that. And now I've forgotten your other question.
Well, it's just the whole picture of the whole person, not just the
Oh.
disease side, because we know if you start weighing everything, we know that the effect of the disease on children under 12 is very small.
Mhm.
Right. We know that there's probably a handful, if not even a handful, maybe less than a dozen, children under the age of 12 across the United States who have died of COVID. Very, very small, infinitesimal number. Okay, so tell me what the risks are. Why would I, as a school board member, or I, as a parent, want to put a mask on my 8-year-old again this year, knowing all the negative things that happened last year?
So
Considering an environment that's
Yeah.
75% inoculated.
First of all, I want to take a step back,
Okay.
and I want to say, I would like to believe that we're all working towards the same things. You know, in-person school is very important, a rich learning environment, and having kids and staff healthy. Those are the things I think we're all aiming for. So let's start with that. At present, 66% of the population in Door County is vaccinated.
Probably the highest county in the state. If I look at those
We're number
maps.
2.
Second. Congratulations, you've done an excellent, I mean,
Well, and if I may, we do not track people that have had it. And there's a debate, right? But if you've had the virus, you have some immunity established. And those people aren't in your statistics. So that's why when he says 75% out of 66, that's not a far stretch. Because if I just add the people I know that have had it and survived and are back doing life, it ticks up the numbers. I'm just trying to be cavalier.
Sure.
No, we are trying to
and
make
you-
wise decisions.
and I apologize coming off without saying, I think you and your department did a masterful job. I think you're awesome. I thought you and Jim Hayes did a fantastic job keeping the community informed, keeping us updated, and keeping the disease in check as well as it was checked. I think you've done an excellent job. I mean, you should take a bow and you should get an increase. Or I should give you an increase. I think you deserve responsibility for the high rate. You said second. I don't know who's number one. Menominee Indian Reservation. wasn't it?
Dane County.
But they don't count. And so,
It's not a competition.
right. But I think you deserve accolades for that too. Okay. So, but now back to my question.
So, you have a great point about some immunity after having the virus. The experts do tell us that they feel even people who've had the virus should be vaccinated to boost immunity. They're not sure if you've had the virus early on and you're exposed to the Delta virus, if you'd be immune.
Or false tests. I mean, you know, I personally had 40% false test rate. So the other thing that's a fact is we've got a lot of false positives. So the truth in the medical community is we don't know if they really had it or it was a false test. So I'm just so that's a challenge. That's why you stick with the actual numbers of taking a shot. That's the only data you can actually probably trust. So that's another perspective I think is valid.
So school board and administrators, what are your important questions to Ms. Powers relative to Sevastopol and us reopening in the fall?
I guess my question is, convince me that our action, that what we took in May, June.
Well, here, if I may say, it's not really a question, and it's just a perspective, I think. So the health, by the way, you just said 1% of the population would cause a public health issue, right? So heart disease is well over 1%.
I didn't say that.
Right, no, I'm with you. So my point is, the COVID years caused us all some challenge. But the health community, and this is what you guys do, have been advising people forever in this free country we live in, right? So COVID is no different. So she's briefing wonderfully what COVID and the CDC is advising. But the CDC is advising for all of the country. Chicago, Milwaukee, Dane County, Sturgeon Bay, DC, that's where the CDC guidance is national, right? So the challenge is down to our little town of Sevastopol. We then are the decision makers for this school board. So I think what her briefing is awesome. She's given us good statistics. In fact, we have had other statistics come to our board. And this is more for the audience listening, the tough challenges. We're listening to all the healthcare stuff. But we are looking at the healthcare, the mental health side of it, the educational side of it, and the falling behind. And so that's a very tough challenge. But I think to your question, you know, the public health presents the data from as a health community, just like your doctor has ever since we've all been going to the doctor. But I don't know if she can or would convince you of what your decision is. You're going to have to make that decision. So I don't think she can answer that question. Unless you have more data, we'll listen.
Well, I have some thoughts. You know, you were focusing on the rate of disease in students. And, you know, I think we have to also consider the school community, the adults, the teachers and staff, that, you know, if it's a very mild case in a student, an adult who is exposed and gets COVID, it could be a severe case, and then it spreads throughout the community, which is more my concern perhaps, but certainly it's a concern of yours also.
Well, for dialogue, right, is our shots are plentifully available. Anyone who wants a shot has gotten a shot, and in fact, they're shutting down shot clinics. So this is where that free society, right, however you want to eat, is there are some people that may choose not to get that shot, right, even though all the recommendations are on. But at the end of the day, so if staff members or people that are worried about that, or my parents that are old, you know, they would choose to get that shot probably, right? So then you put it on the individual, and I've always respected my fellow citizens, and I'm doing it again in this group, is that people should be held responsible for themselves. So all those people that are at high risk that we've heard about for a year, in most cases, they've probably gotten a shot, right? That would kind of be reasonable. That's probably why we're at 66%, because we're a highly retired community, which we've talked about that for a year now too, because we agree with that. But I'm just, some of that is a valid comments. Is that true?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, yes, that's true. Can't argue with that. I'm going to jump back to Jerry, your question. There's no way Sue's going to convince you that you should make kids wear masks. That's obvious. Nor should she try. She's here to tell you what the recommendations are from the medical community and from the CDC. That's what we have received, and that's what we're passing on.
And Joe, it's exactly right, they're recommendations, not requirements.
That's correct.
Right.
They are recommendations. We are
And
not.
then- Okay, so if we do have a case here at school, it's students quarantined, who is responsible to contact trace for that case?
Can I come back to that in a
Sure,
second?
sure.
Thanks. So our job, right, is to look out for the community well-being, not just the schools. And for what it's worth, I'm assuming you guys know this, but we have been meeting with the superintendents and the school staff for a year and a half.
Since last June, yes.
So we're trying to figure this out, right, together and put it together. The human services side of the Health and Human Services Department gets all the psychological stuff probably as well as anybody, and how important it is for kids to be in school. So that's a factor that's been involved in this all along. I think in terms of trying to convince people of what to do, that's not our jobs. But our job is to protect the community, and we've had a weird shift from those seniors who are at risk to now the highest population in my mind that are at risk are the 12 and under. They don't even have opportunity to get the vaccine. We hear regularly, kids don't die, kids don't even really get sick. When the kids get it, they don't even know they have it. All those things are also true. However, they still spread the illness, just like adults. And our job is to try and contain that spread outside of wherever it starts. Just like all other communicable diseases, that's our responsibility. So, if I go to Kyle's question then, which is, if we have a positive case inside the schools, who's responsible to do it?
To do what?
To do contact tracing. So we have a responsibility to do that. We have a practical, how do we do that? To Kyle's question is, working through that and figuring out who all those kids are and who they're connected with and who they had contact with, we need all that information from the schools. It's our position that the schools did it well last year. As Sue indicated, when we had 500 and some cases in a month, we also had 10 additional staff that we brought in to handle those cases. We know we're going to have more COVID. We don't know how much. We don't know how bad it's going to get. If we have other outbreaks, we have to try and contain those. So to your point, who's responsible, Kyle? We're all responsible. And it's going to take collaboration just like it did last year. If it gets out of hand and we have outbreaks, then we have to look at what do we do to contain it. And I don't know what that means exactly. That's a route that we'll have to get to as we figure it out, just like we've done for the last 12 months or 13 months, however long it's been. So I don't think...
And we were flexible last year, we switched multiple times.
Yeah, and I think, Sue started out saying that. She sent recommendations to Kyle, and 2 days later, CDC came out with different recommendations. That's been happening to us for 12 or 13 months, right? So longer than that, 16, 18 months. It feels like forever. So I think one of the things we do is we make a plan, and then we know that we need to be flexible, and that plan needs to change. Our plans probably go more towards the extreme. We're planning for the worst and trying to react to things as we have to. So I don't think Sue needs to stand here and try to convince you guys that you ought to have kids wear masks. It's pretty clear you already have a position on that. And I don't think we're going to change that. So that's my 2 cents.
Sue or Joe, either one. I have read articles saying that it is not a violation of HIPAA to ask employees if they have had the vaccination. What is the status of that?
I am not an authority on that, Sue. I would refer you to your counsel, your school lawyer.
A little bit louder, please.
I am not an authority on that.
Okay.
Yeah, you'd have to refer to, whatever legal counsel the
Okay.
school board uses.
Okay. Thank you. And I've also read that there are opportunities for schools to opt into free testing this year. Is that something you would recommend that we do?
I recommend you consider it
Okay.
and learn more about it. It might be a large undertaking, and I know Sturgeon Bay Schools has already said they're not going to do it because their proximity to the hospital and that testing was convenient for them. So I would certainly look into it and recommend you weigh your options.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms.
Just a
Powers?
comment. Thanks for coming out. I think it's important that you understand, depending on how this discussion goes, we were glad you're meeting with Kyle. Every time we meet, we talk about it. Flexibility, the admin team already had, well, they had it anyways, but they know they have full flexibility to change. So we recognize the importance of it. We're trying to respond. But I think this dialogue is helpful because we're also trying to partially educate our community, our parents, so that they kind of know the data we're using to do our best, right? That may change tomorrow. I agree with you that. So I just wanted to make sure, I wanted to say thanks for that. And this ain't easy. So I'm a military planner too. We always plan for the worst too. So.
Well, I've thought throughout the last year that, my job was tough, but I've thought many times that it would only be worse to be a school superintendent, so hats off to you. He didn't.
You were doing good until then.
Yeah, so tell him that he needs a raise too.
Yeah, you guys, he needs a raise.
Thank you both for coming
Thank you.
tonight. We
Thanks.
You
appreciate
bet.
the information.
Joe and Sue, that's the one we're all.
Yeah.
So we gotta cut through the gap, it's okay. But thanks for coming.
We do have some guests that didn't sign the sign-in sheet, so I'm going to put it back over there. When you leave tonight, if you didn't sign up, we just need to know who was here, if you would sign this sheet. And we have one guest, Jeff Swanson,
Close enough.
who wants to speak.
Okay. Well, that was really interesting discussion, and thank you for everybody who asked questions to Sue. Appreciate that. Just wanted to say thank you to the school board for the decision you made earlier in the year to go maskless over the summer. Having a kid who's in summer school, we've really appreciated that, and it's made a difference, and so thank you for that. One of the things that we've been pondering is just how much at the mercy of recommendations like this the school board will be, and it was really good to see a robust discussion on that and different points of view. And as parents, we would really like to see that kind of healthy approach continue as much as possible. some of the things that questions that we've been talking about as parents, based on things that have been happening in the wider Wisconsin environment and nationally, and things that we want the school board to consider and maybe have a position on, and something which you already touched on today, Sue. Vaccines are available, and everybody who wants one can get one, and if they're at risk, I would encourage you to take one. Not for me personally, but it's a calculated risk. Which is worse, getting the virus itself or the side effects that could come with the vaccine? And it's all statistics at that point. It's your personal choice. But what I would like to advocate for is personal choice, where it's possible. So when we've got kids that are going to come to school, some of those will be vaccinated and some of them won't be, and we're very much hoping that the school won't be discriminating against kids that are not vaccinated. So we'd be interested to hear if you have a position on that yet already. Same kind of question would apply to having a vaccination clinic in the school. If you want to offer that in the school, then that's fine, but we'd write really clear protocols that unless parents have given explicit permission, written permission for their children to be vaccinated, that there's no chance that will happen to their child of a parent who hasn't given that written permission. Same thing with COVID testing. If you want to tell us that our child has been exposed and you recommend a COVID test, then we'll take our child out of school and keep them for the recommended 2 weeks or however long you need to guarantee safety to other kids. But again, it has to be a parental consent for a COVID test. I won't go into the reasons for that, but there's plenty of them. And again, kids who are not wearing masks, who are not vaccinated, would hope they'd be treated the same way that kids that have been vaccinated, if it comes to that. And then,
Coming up on 3 minutes.
okay, thank you. Last point, and I hope this doesn't apply to Sevastopol. There was a case in the news about a school, Elmington School District, where the school had made available online reading materials to kids in like 3rd grade that were very, very inappropriate. I guess some of you may have heard about this very sexually explicit content. Can the board tell us anything about the material that's available to our kids? Are they able to go onto websites and download books through the school that are not vetted in any way, or how does that work? So those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We can't discuss those things tonight. They're not agended. I'm sure the administrative team will take those up in discussion and bring them back to the school board next month as we discuss school reopening again.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have other questions, send them to the superintendent, and we will address them as appropriate.
I can do that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll put this sheet over there. We have registered guests just to sign in. Does anyone wish any items removed from the consent agenda? Hearing none, then the consent agenda is approved by consent. And we'll move to administrators' reports and begin with Mr. Bear.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Berry. I appreciate it. I'll keep my report brief tonight, but I just want the board to know that we are working very hard this summer. This week was especially busy, and we feel like we're all back full time, and that's a good feeling. We're starting to lay out our professional development practice goals, and definitely focusing on closing the achievement gap or identifying the gaps in learning. So that's something that we're doing, and we're meeting with the CISA next week to look at data gaps and data information so that we can make informed decisions and then share that, of course, with our staffs. I know the senior exit survey is an agenda item, so I won't talk about that, but I do say that every time I take a look at that survey information, it provides an opportunity for us. So as part of that discussion, we'll share more information at that time. Was able to attend a nonviolent crisis training. It's really nice that we have a staff member that's certified to train other staff members. So there were 7 of us that attended that training, and it was very beneficial for me, even after being in this business for many years, to attend that, especially with my colleagues, so we can share an approach of how to work with kids when they're in a crisis situation. It really was a great conversation and a good day. The last thing that I want to report on is not on my report, but I just really want to take a second to thank Missy and Amy for all they've done for our school, especially Mrs. Lautenbach, who has become my right hand and a close confidant and friend. And I just know that there are kids across this country, and they all need good people like Mrs. Lautenbach in their lives, and I'm sure that she'll continue to make a difference in her next place. But we're so lucky to have her as part of our school. I know that she is a first face that many of our families meet and greet, and she will be sadly missed, but at the same time, I'm very happy for her. So thank you for the opportunity to thank her.
Questions for Mr. Bear? If there are none, we'll move to Mrs. Margraf.
I don't have a lot to add to my report. It's official that we're halfway through summer programming, and it's been really successful from the student perspective and then the staff perspective. So I'm happy to report that, despite that we had to do it a little bit different and we're in different locations, that it's going really well. So I'm hearing really positive reports from all, which is really nice. I know when you go into executive session, there is going to be, Mr. Lickey has more of an update about our school psychologist. We are still in the process of looking, but I'm optimistic that we're going to find a right fit for Sevastopol. And then I'm going to share more about the equity work that we've been doing as a committee when we get down to the committee reports. That's all I have.
If there are no questions, we'll move to Mr. Hiltz.
I just want to touch on one of the things that was in the report, and it piggybacks off of what Mr. Bear was saying. A big part of how a school runs are the front office people, and certainly Amy and Missy will both be missed. Missy, especially for me, because we work so closely. Coming on board 6 months into my time here, it was nice to get a chance to develop and grow and work together. We did have some interviews this past week, and I'm confident that we'll have another wonderful face to represent the school, those families that are coming, and that's their first experience at the school. But again, I want to make sure I take a moment and just thank Missy for the things that she did. She did a wonderful job balancing both making sure things were running well, being stoic when that needed to happen, and at the same time being friendly and welcoming to families.
Thank you. Did anyone have questions they want to address to Mr. Lukey regarding the athletic director gifted talented report?
I'm just going to make an observation for the administrative reports in the future, maybe starting after school. I would find it, I like your reports, but I'd also like to hear things that aren't going well. Not the whole list of stuff, but one or two things that are challenges to
I would say
you.
replacing a secretary is a challenge.
I know, but you know what I mean.
Finding a school psychologist is a challenge.
Yeah, but
I did have one for you tonight, Sherry, actually, and I didn't report on that, but Mr. Lidke has allowed me to get involved with the new equipment going in our tech lab. And unfortunately, many of our things are either back ordered or not available, so we're having a hard time working with our electrical contractor. But we're getting things in this week. Having contact, we got 2 new pieces of equipment today. So it's been a challenge though, because a lot of our things are back ordered. So.
okay, because most of the time we always get nice reports, but if you get at least in one, each of your reports is one item of, here's a challenge I got for the coming month or something, or the coming quarter, however you want to do it. I mean, just it
Keeps us grounded.
keeps us grounded, right? And then it keeps us from having certain surprises like, oh, I didn't hear anything about that. They told me everything.
So your challenge is to report a challenge to us.
Yeah. And if you don't have any, that's very good. But I mean, it's not that it throws sticks in anything. Just what are some of the challenges out there too? So we understand, and I'm not saying we can help you with those challenges, but it'd make it much, to me, a more rounded report about what's on the dark side.
Oh, but like the thing you sent out, more reporting requirements. How are you handling it? Do we need more requirements? You made a comment that's stuck with me since our last meeting, that years ago we just educated kids, and now it's the whole person, and that I think goes unrecognized. And so I'm not done with that one yet for down the road, but that was, I really I'm still chewing on that, right? And that's when we talk about budgets and staff and stuff like that, and why do you have so many admin? Those are the things, and those are the things that might trickle out of these challenges to make sure we don't forget these things. And if nothing more than to inform our awesome community that this is why we have, your position came on, right? It was needed and absolutely needed, but I think it was new at the time, right? So, there was no issue at the time. It was good and you're a rock star. But those are where the challenges can cultivate out of an organization to realize that, hey, so I think that's why I've been supportive of your comments, just as an example.
If there's nothing on the athletic director, 15 calendar report, we'll move to the superintendent's report.
When Ms. Forey resigned as elementary secretary, we thought we would look at the job duties of the secretaries and restructure it. We started on Tuesday. Unfortunately, Ms. Lautenbach resigned on Monday, so we just still met on Tuesday. One portion is the state reporting piece of the puzzle. I contacted CC7 to see if there's some assistance we can receive in that area. Also, we started that this week, and we'll start continuing on next Tuesday on our discussion on the SO3 funds and the best manner in which to provide education for the kids, especially the students that may lost some education along the way. We are beginning to plan in-service days for the fall, the 4 are there, and we're going to select about 10 staff members to participate in the WASB civil rights training that's been offered.
I know we've been we've had some discussions about the Mighty Pioneers, and there have been a few bumps in the road in trying to work with that group. But I spend most of the summer nights over at the ball field watching anyone from the little Rudy Toots, who are the 4-year-olds, through the seniors in high school, playing ball every night. The fields were full, and it was well organized and well attended, and that is to the credit of the Mighty Pioneers group. So we want to continue to work with them, obviously. They did a great job on that.
To follow up on that, we're meeting with them on Monday night to keep communications open, so yeah, it's going the right direction.
Good.
They got some good umpires up here too.
I did not get to review you, so did you do another game?
Probably no.
We'll move to committee reports then, and Mrs. Margraf, would you update the board on the equity committee progress?
I did. I snuck a piece of paper on your desk, or on your desk there, that just gives you a summary of what the equity committee has been up to the past 2 times that we met. We have, the beginning when the equity committee had started, I think, I want to acknowledge the fact that I think really good dialogue has happened within the committee, because there's more, it feels to me, I will just say that there's more of a collective understanding about what the work is that needs to get done. So it's been good dialogue that we've had. And from that dialogue, we have come to the consensus of, a survey to survey our students in equity, and you'll see that it's not just equity, there's many things we're going to ask our students, it's not just that, is a good idea for us to get a foundation of knowledge to know where our students are at. Through trying to determine who is the best organization to work with, Sue was instrumental in getting the Search Institute to us, and we were impressed by the Search Institute. They are a leader in the field. We met with them by Google Meet and really impressed with what they had to say. So through the learning about the Search Institute, the committee themselves came to consensus on some of the items that we want to see where our students are at. And you'll see that I listed them there, that core measure 1, and I won't go through all of this, this is something that you can read, but core measure 1 is about the developmental relationships that our students have with the staff here in the building. That's 20 questions, 7 minutes roughly, and that's where our 4th grade through 12th grade will take that. 4th grade is the youngest that the search committee even has surveys for. So we don't go younger than 4th grade at this time. So the second area where we want to gain some more information is that social emotional competencies, And again, our fourth graders up through seniors will take that. You'll see that it's 5 questions. It's about 2 minutes long. So it's not particularly taxing for our younger students. When you think about they're going to be taking, the questions that they'll have about 25 questions that they'll be able to take. And then we want to dive a little bit deeper into that equity piece. And our Core Matters 3 is the equitable practices and developmental relationships and promoting equity. And that is for middle high school students only. The survey is set up for that age group. And you'll see there that that's 7 questions we'll ask our students, and approximately takes 3 minutes for the students to be able to do that. And then finally, I want to add is they have additional modules that you can go through. It's a menu of what you choose. We felt that the diversity, equity, and inclusion assets was really, really important. We felt that when we look at equity, we felt that module can dig a little bit deeper into some of those issues that we want to get some more information about. Information is power. We want to ask those questions. We want to determine where our student body is. And with that information, then we can determine our next steps of professional development for teachers, how we're going to educate our community, how we're going to bring more people in to know these results, and how we can be a stronger community because of that. That will include, I can anticipate, students once we figure out where we're at. Parents, community members, really people coming in and doing that work with us. But we felt like the survey at this point was a really good, solid starting point, because we just don't know. So we have to reach out. We want to ask those questions, just so we know the level playing field that we're at, and we know the direction of where the Equity Committee can go in the future. So I broke down on the first page just a little bit of the topics that the students are, the questions of the topics. And if you flip over to the back, you'll see that the survey details our middle high school students take about 17 minutes to take this survey. So we also wanted to have it manageable. We didn't want it to take up a ton of the student time, because they're here for, other things. So we didn't want this to be, a big task for, pardon me, our students or our faculty as well. And elementary students, you'll see it's about 9 minutes. I bulleted here what the cost, what's included in there, and then the costs are there at the very bottom. I did the math. The basic package is about $1,122 to do all 4 of those modules and get some results. There are a lot of things that we can add on, and the committee will talk about whether or not that's a really good idea or not. But we need to talk, and we need to figure out what's going to be, how are we going to get the best information to use this survey to get some answers, to figure out where we're at and how to move forward in the future. The other future possibilities, I think, that we talked about that we were excited about is an equity survey for staff. If we're going to ask our kids where they're at, then I think we should get a pulse of where the staff is as well. And that was received well at the committee as well, to do that at some point. And then Search Institute, based on all this information, absolutely has a robust professional development opportunities should we want to go into that direction. There is more information down there, and it is the facts and answers and questions. I found that section of the website incredibly helpful if it's something that you wanted to dive in and learn a little bit more. But I plan on giving more updates as the committee continues this journey. I've already been in touch with Search Institute and setting up the next steps on how we can get this started. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Questions?
When do you think you will, have you informed, I know you haven't informed parents yet of the survey, but that's going to be an important aspect of the whole thing.
It's huge. So Search Institute has, again, a lot of materials and a lot of information on how you do that well. Being transparent, community, parents, teachers, they need to know exactly what is being asked, why it's being asked, and how that information is going to be used.
Well, in last month, the board approved doing a survey for the high school students. which is presented tonight, shows down to grade 4. So since the board made the motion for grades 9 through 12, we'll probably bring it back in August to go down to 4th grade.
And actually, it was February that we needed.
February?
It wasn't just last month, it was February,
Okay.
way back then.
All right.
But
I
Mr.
think that was-
Wyman,
I think
I
at the
totally
time,
agree,
well,
and that's one of, I talked with them today. I talked with a woman named Mary today who was incredibly helpful. They're gonna walk us through that process, because I made a point specifically to say, this area might be uncomfortable for some people in our
Yeah, yeah.
community. And if we don't deliver the information well, we have a responsibility to do that. You know, so
Right.
there is, and next time I can come back with some of those materials, and maybe the board can take a look at that to, you know, to show what it is that we have to do.
Search does a very good job of laying everything out. Once the district contracts with them, they'll provide all of the backup information, videos, and so on. They're extremely reputable.
Did she say that they could do Spanish translation?
Absolutely, they do any language we need. Yeah, so you'll put that in
And
there.
that price
the-
you quoted?
That just, pardon?
In that price you quoted, or
Yes. So the always includes, those bullets there, they're all included in that 1,000, the basic bottom line that I said. When it's, there's a lot of other, there's probably about 10 or 12 other options that, you know, will add additional cost. I'll bring that to the committee, and we can decide whether or not that's necessary or not. I have fullest confidence that they're going to guide us. Our vision, they're gonna tell us what we need, and if it's an extra cost, I mean, the most expensive one that I saw is maybe an extra $150. And I'm not saying that let's just add that on, but what I'm trying to say is that it's not a huge cost to add more layers to it. Yeah.
more of a consideration right along the lines of you, sir, is what I imagine you'll do this survey and it'll be discovery. So, and maybe your guys will go through this, but let me finish this.
Yeah.
After there's some discovery, I imagine there's gonna be some terms that need to be clarified so they understand what they're actually talking about, so there's an educational piece. I might think that committee, you guys might wanna think about, hear me out and chew on this for a while, have a community class, right? If it's that important, teach the community first, before you teach their kids. Because actually, we're hearing that right now, is parents don't know what's going on, and this is a hot topic, so if we're gonna start influencing our kids, I think the committee should highly discuss that, hey, we're gonna educate your kids in this way, right? And let's run through the slides in front of them.
I totally appreciate that you said that, because, you know, we're talking about this universal design for learning and where we're going. That would completely agree that there needs to be multiple ways that we're communicating with our community so everybody understands. So if it is that we have something where, you know, it's a presentation, come learn about the Search Institute, come learn about the survey, I would welcome that for people to come in, so we get that opportunity to tell them and show them that this is what it is and this is how it'll be used, to educate them. Another big piece that Search does that I asked is, well, what about the teacher preparation for this? You can't just give kids a survey. Teachers have to be very, very well trained and, you know, have the information on how to deliver this. Again, that same, people are going to take this survey maybe a little bit different, we don't know. But our teachers and our staff have to be prepared to do that in a manner that feels safe for all of the students as well. Search Institute definitely has materials for teachers to learn prior to even giving these surveys to kids. So there's a lot of education that needs to go on in order for Sevastopol to pull this off successfully and to really, really use that information for future growth. So, for sure.
Anyone else?
Yes. My question is caution. I think it's behooved the board to see the 46 questions before we give them out to the students. This has become a lightning rod issue across the country in the nightly news. Every night is another school board and parents jumping and recalling them over stuff. And part of it is that I think as we move from the term equality to equity, and there's a big difference between equality and equity. Equality means everybody starts from the same starting line. Equity means everybody finishes the finish line. And that is a big, big change in philosophy of many people, especially maybe people in a rural community like this, who believe the hard work and roll up your sleeves to get to the line. So I would really press that we see what the questions are being asked before we step further, so that we don't have to retreat with a room full of angry parents. Because this has become a really political thing. You know, many equate this with woke. This is very woke. And woke, in my vernacular, is not a very positive term. It means that there's one answer to things. There's not there's not open discussion of issues. It's the woke way, or you are a whatever. So I think this, you know, when it all started, when we talked about this back in February, I was like, oh yeah, we want to talk about equality and all that stuff, but it's become much more of a political issue since then. And I think we need to treat this with most eyes open. Because what sounds good can become a real mess. And just as a personal thing on the side, I personally have real issues of what some of these things have gone to now, totally ignoring the words of Martin Luther King, where we judge people not by the color of their skin, but rather by what they do in their character. And a lot of this to me is we start with skin color first. And if we as a society, and this is editorial, but if we as a society begin to look upon everything by skin color, then by all reason, the American experiment is over. Because the American experiment started with colorblind. So the Declaration of Independence, and I know we can get into all the things that didn't include slaves and the 3/5 rule and all that stuff, 3/5 vote. But the intent of the American experiment was that we do not judge people by the color of their skin. And I just want to make sure that we don't get into that thing, into that mess. And so, yeah.
When we started talking about this last summer, this was like a hot topic. There was the George Floyd incident in Minneapolis, and the Kenosha riots were going on. And when we talked about that, the equity committee, I was dubious, and I got on the committee because I didn't want this to focus just on color. And I think it took a year to find this company to do the survey, and most of this survey is not even focused on equity. It's focused on relationships and social things. So I don't object to the board seeing the questions, but I think based on what I've seen, when you see the questions, you'll be comfortable with them. And they are not, I do not believe they are leading questions. I don't believe that they lead people to answer. We'll bring the questions. I do not think that there's any issue with that.
I just think it's our responsibility as a board to look at the questions.
Well, if I may inject, sir, is what I heard you say is you're going to brief us regularly on progress. And maybe the only thing I would foot stomp is maybe before you release the questions, we talk about it as a group. And then we determine, does it need to go to parents first? Or are these something that the average citizen out there would think it's very a neutral informational thing? And we just haven't seen it. So your progress is awesome. Keep going, because we all want to figure this out. But I think the cautions are there. So, we should all be prepared as board members, so that because little kids go home and talk to mom and dad, and we all work with the parents, and they're like, why is my kid answering this question? I would like to be prepared with a good, educated answer instead of making some shit up on the fly.
And I
think we're on that path.
Exactly, and that's what the education of the community, the staff, and the parents would be all about. And the only comment that I want to, Jerry, thank you. The only comment I do want to make though too is that we talked about how even the word equality, equity, whatever it is, we talked about, it's about school culture. It's about what happens in this building. You know, if we don't ask certain questions, then we don't know. So I absolutely never want to get in a position that you described at all. And I think that we have an obligation not to get in that position, and we need to do the good work to make sure that we are here, and you guys are definitely certainly not in the hot seat, you know, if there are community members that don't agree with the
Well, just to change
survey.
the time scale on this.
Sure.
I have been bugging this group about bullying for a long time. Some things that will be cultivated out of these things are going to be the culture in this school.
School culture.
Really, not what we think it is, but really. So that's why it's really a good idea. And you're right, the tags and the names that are used right now are hot buttons. But I think if we follow the discipline
I
process.
can't imagine not
We have a
asking.
committee.
Yeah.
We have a committee. We need to trust the process. And there's, I mean, I appreciate the recommendation or the suggestion that we bring it back to the whole board, but that's what committee reports do. We report back to the committee. I really don't want to see micromanagement of this committee, you guys. The search committee is a very professional organization, and we as a committee would never put Sevastopol in peril here. If we have to bring everything from the committee back to this board for approval, we'll get stalemated, folks. I'm sorry, but
Well, first of all, I agree with you, and that's a normal process, right? But when we started this, there are so many terms that are not clear. So I will take issue with when you report back to the board members need to understand it. And if your report isn't good enough, we're gonna ask questions.
perfect.
I'm not just gonna, so we're on the same page. But I don't want you to think we're saying don't do anything. What we're saying is.
I'm not hearing that.
Right, okay,
I'm
that's why I
asking-
misunderstood that. Awesome. Carry on.
I'm just asking that you trust the process.
I think all we asked was to report out on a regular basis so
And
we
that's
can
what
learn.
we do regularly.
Yeah, but I think, what I'm saying is that don't mistrust the committee. I'm saying because of this issue is so, it can be a firecracker or a keg of TNT. Before we send something that all the kids are going to, on a charged issue like this, I think it behooves the board of directors to see what the questions are before they go out. Now, the committee may not see any issues with it, but some of the members of this group are, which would be best to iron it out there before it gets out into the public, and then it's out of control.
Well, if I may,
And
we have a diverse group of parents, and I'm respecting that. And so I want to make sure I understand, and I can name, which parents are going to be coming and talking and asking questions. So if I'm well informed, because we've had some dialogue, I think it will all go well, and the committee continues to make progress. Because if the wheels come off and there's 87 people in this room, we're probably going to make the decision to stop. So please understand, I'm trying to help continue great progress, and versus slow you down.
If I could say, I would say, first off, I think it's prudent to be cautious with these hot button topics. The second piece is, I want everybody to be assured that all the people on the committee are not entering this with bias. I think we've had some very genuine discussions about making sure that we're not going in with any specific intent in mind. And then on the back end, there's no specific intent that once we get that information that this is exactly what we're going to do with it. It's really a matter of collecting information to figure out what things look like. I think I gave the analogy a long time ago about there's the iceberg that you can see, and there's all the stuff underneath, and we need to get at what that stuff is to determine what, if any, next steps we need to take. But to Jerry's point, I think I've seen places, I've been near districts where they haven't been mindful of some of those kind of things, and they do run into those problems. So I think we just need to be cautious how we proceed. But I think it is important that we continue moving forward.
And we don't have those questions yet.
All right.
Good work is what I
Melissa
should
will
have said.
continue to update the school board, and as we get to that point, if the board feels that it's necessary to see the questions, we'll say we need to see the questions.
And the only thing I would caution with that is the questions themselves are proprietary.
Yes.
So there may be some limitations on how those can be viewed or those kind of things. It may be a single copy that people board members can come in and look. I don't know that it's something you can copy off or those
I know that
kinds of
for
things.
sure. I mean, even the sample ones that we were given, we were under strict
Yes.
guidelines that, and.
I had to sign for them that we would not reproduce them because.
Well, but we are the Board of Education, and it's being
Yeah.
We can all
done
sign
under
an
their
NDA.
guidance. So
Yes,
if we
I
want to see them, we
understand
should
that.
be able to see them. Then they need to, then they.
Yeah.
There's a process we can follow.
That is
I would assume
fine.
that there's a process, but I just wanted to caution the board.
Yes,
it's
that
not as
is
simple
fine,
as
but
like
that doesn't
traditional
mean-
survey or the
We're not to
company
that,
that.
we don't have the questions yet. We'll cross that bridge as we get to it.
But once they are online, if we send them out to board members online, they can be sent hither and yon.
So,
And that's what we have to be very cautious of.
So I've been working with proprietary data for a lot of years, and the caution the committee now needs to add to your list is, how the hell do we tell our parents, we're gonna ask your kids questions, but we can't show you the questions?
They can come in and inspect it.
Okay, just so we have an answer. I don't
They
care
can
what the
come
answer
in and
is, but we
inspect
need to have an
them.
answer, because I can tell you right now, let's fill the room. If we don't allow parents to see these questions.
They can come in and inspect
Yeah,
them,
yeah,
Dave. We
yeah.
cannot violate copyright laws.
I get it, I understand, but I'm saying we need to have a method and a room and multiple meetings where parents can come and
That's
sit in the
fine.
conference room and read.
And Searchme Institute may have some
Yeah,
direction for
ask
us
them.
in
Yeah.
Yeah,
educating.
they're the guys, yeah, I get it.
And parents
Because that's a
also
moneymaker
have
for
the
board member
opportunity
wants to
to
see
opt
the
out if they choose for their child not to be involved in
Okay.
the service.
Any other questions for Mrs. Margraf right now on the information we have tonight? Hearing none, it'll come back with another update next month, and we'll move to property, buildings, and security.
Those two pieces of that. The property, building, and security, basically both meetings are about phase 2 of the field project. And we have many projects in phase 2 because we're still working on phase 1. Right?
Phase 1 is going well.
Well, I was gonna do that at building
Okay.
project, but
I want to do-
pretty good.
We'll do
Not
a building
Kepler.
project, okay. Athletic committee have anything to report?
Well, just, I think we're, and that was what he alluded to, a meeting where the athletic committee, Mighty Pioneers, and just for everyone, Mighty Pioneers is an independent group of volunteers doing everything you just alluded to. And then separately, the Booster Club is a group of volunteers supporting high school sports, basically. And then the athletic committee is working with them. And just to make sure everyone's understanding who's doing what and where the lines are of responsibility and stuff, so there's no confusion, one, amongst the 3 organizations, and then more importantly, we can inform the community when there's questions, because like a lot of people are saying, hey, it's awesome that your school has sports for all these young kids. But in fairness, the school is not doing that. We're not spending tax dollars on it because it's not authorized. So those are some things that we're meeting, and so that's going well, I think. And so I'm glad.
Does your committee serve as like the liaison between those two groups?
Say again?
Does your committee, does the athletic committee serve like as the liaison between those two groups?
No.
Well, I would say the athletic
They work,
committee.
well, yeah, but they work pretty direct with themselves.
By-
I
by-
mean,
between
we
each other?
do
Oh,
invite
okay.
them together, but I mean.
They get along?
Yes, they work, they are doing a
They're figuring it out.
collaborative measure with
They're figuring it out.
the stand for the summer. That
You guys
Lisa
are the
said it
referees.
earlier about the games going on there. They have games there every night of the week, and it's run by both the Booster Club and the Mighty Pioneers. It's a collaborative. So
It's really very positive. You got 2 groups out there that are giving their effort to.
Yes.
Well, that's the foot stomp to everyone. If you know Booster Club people or Pioneer, people that are Mighty Pioneers, they're all volunteer people. It's awesome, right? So like
And the
Kyle and
parents-
the AD are getting paid, but after that, they're all volunteers.
And on a side note, parents of kids that have in
all
programming
of
do put their time in.
Sure, yeah.
In the stand, so it is but yes, the work that they do is, benefits our students on scholarships and other equipment, they do good work, so.
But Keith, you can't hit on where you, as a parent of a late Pioneer kid, you must volunteer to do concession stand. I think you can do the clock or something out there too. Somehow you gotta volunteer.
Something, yes.
You can
Yeah.
hump the bases
We-
if you want to, I mean, they don't
Yeah.
care, you.
So we, as a school district, may borrow that philosophy when it comes to, it seems like our booster club at all our facilities only have the same 5-6 people, and we may be tapping into our parents the same way and saying, hey, your kids are involved, you can do it there, you can do it here, you know?
I think it's good to get community involved.
It
On a
is
side
funny.
note, I had a conversation with a potential new family that has multiple students under age 13, and they're one of their main reasons for wanting to come to Sevastopol was the organization of our youth sports. I've never heard that before from a family that was considering, so that really is a strong, positive step in the right direction. So, just wanted to share that.
Okay, we'll move to the budget.
Okay, you have your main sheet in front of you. For ESSER 2 funds, throughout our three funds, Fund 10, which is our general fund, Fund 27, special education, and Fund 50, food service, we've received $143,393.44. We had to transfer from Fund 10 in general fund into special ed Fund 27, $953,626.47. We had budgeted a transfer amount of $1,015,841. So with the good job Ms. Margraf did on running her department efficiently and the ESSER funds that went into Fund 27, we did not have to transfer plan $62,214.60. Also in food service, we were expecting to transfer $100,208, but because all the meals were paid for through the federal government and some ESSER funds that flowed through there, we only had to transfer $10,999.67. So that saved our Fund 10 expenses by $89,208.33. $2.9 million in revenues are accounted for, but haven't been received yet. 2.8 of that is the property taxes for last year when people make their payments. You make some in January, the rest will flow in August here. But August goes back to June 30th books because it's that school year. So we are sitting with a fund balance of 4.295, so 4.3. Yeah, Fund 10 cash in accounts is $4.8 million. This is the time of year where we transfer money into Fund 46 for building projects and such. And the recommendation is we're going to move $400,000 next week because you have to do it by July 30th over to Fund 46. Our revenue for the year, if you're looking at your revenue summary sheet.
Well, actually, if you look on the front page, all the revenues and expenses, that is, for what we know, for what I'm aware of, that is all revenue, that is all expenses for fiscal year 2021.
Right, and we have more revenue than we expected by $404,452.69. The four areas that the biggest increases were open enrollment. We had budgeted $1 million. We received $1,218,382 in open enrollment. So we did better in our open enrollment students than we anticipated. And we had the ESSER 1 funds of $54,208. ESSER 2 was $117,754. And the per pupil aid was a little bit higher by $56,616. So our revenue was better than anticipated.
So if you go to the bottom line, the most important is cash is king. Cash on hand is approximately what?
Right now, cash on hand in Fund 10 is 4.7 million, almost 4.8 million. We, with 2.9 million still to come in yet. Revenues have been accounted for, we just haven't received the cash yet because I have to receive them at the end of the fiscal year, so we have receivables of 2.9 million that are coming in. So basically 7.2 million is what we'll have in cash.
Questions on the budget?
That's why we were looking at the 400,000.
Hearing none, we'll move to the facilities report.
Well, they demolished 1924 section and underneath the foundation. Back 100 years ago, they dug out all the topsoil till they hit bedrock, and then they poured the cement walls, and then they invited every farmer in Door County to dump their field stones in there. And then they covered up with cement and called it a day, and they said, we'll never see those rocks again, and they didn't, and the building lasted for 100 years, so their plan worked, but now it's going to cost us between $80,000 and $100,000 to get all those stones out of there. Lily Bay doesn't have a crusher that can handle that size field stone. Myron thought about bringing one up here, but that'd be cost ineffective to bring it up here. And then even if they busted them up, it may not give you the proper gravel to have a surface for a parking lot. We can't just put a layer over top of it because the field stones are all sitting there, and over time the soil would settle, and then you'd have potholes in your asphalt. So they got to get it out there and get it correctly done. Out in the front of the main entrance here, you'll notice that every time it rains, water runs across the driveway. The two, what do you call them, scuffers on the top,
Yeah.
the overflow. They caught those, the engineers did, but they didn't catch the drains that come off the roof, so they got to catch those instead. And we may want to reroute the sidewalk out here a little bit, put a drain out there. POB's been out here, they did another study on it, and they're going to meet with Dan Petrina and I again. The face room is going well, but there's a couple minor changes there. They poured the asphalt out in the south parking lot last week and around the east side of the school. They want us to park on it to see how it settles and forms. So far, we're finding a few dimples where your truck front end of your vehicle is because the engine's heavier, and so they're gonna have to address that. And like Mr. Bear stated, some of the tech ed equipment with one shop teacher leaving and one coming on board, and Mr. Bear's doing a good job with Gene of tracking down where the equipment's at, because Ewan Electric needs to know what kind of electrical hookup each piece needs, and so it's a process we're going through. And then the track project, they found a first track, original track underneath the track that we've been running on, so that had to be removed.
Big old rocks underneath it, right?
No, that was another asphalt track, so, and it was just off a little bit, so they're getting that removed. And then the 10-inch tile that goes along the east side to the north side and then cuts across the church property was clogged, and they have that. And I was in the trench yesterday with Jeremy, and he cut it open, and we pulled out some cans that had filtered there for a while. And they're going to jet the line back to the manhole cover, which is out on what we use as a practice field for football, and that should be the solution to that. So there's some things, but it's a construction project, so you're going to get that, you know. We'll be ready by September 7th.
Do we think the parking lot will be ready then? The building looking good, but.
Yeah,
still a
yeah,
question.
I mean, they might, yeah, I mean, they've been hauling away the field stone, and they're keeping track of how many loads they're hauling away. We're fortunate because we're only being charged for the transportation of it, not for taking the materials, so that's good. It could have been much worse. It averaged about 3 feet deep depending where you're at. There's a spot where it's 6 feet deep of field stone. And those men were men back then that threw those rocks in there. They're not, they're big ones, yeah. Yeah, that was tough.
Fun. That's it on the facilities?
That's all I got.
Okay, so legislatively?
Yes, the good news is we do have a state budget for the next biennium. Not what we were looking for necessarily in the education component, but it is there, and the governor did add $100 million in federal funds for kids in public schools. And he has indicated that these funds could be used to support kids in the classroom, hire educators and staff, provide additional educational or mental health supports, buy art supplies or computers, keep the lights on, whatever is needed. And there is an appropriation in there for $89 million for students with disabilities, and $19 million for school mental health programs, a doubling of the state resources for gifted and talented children, and high-cost transportation aid. And it looks like, looking at preliminary figures, that our district would gain $13,052 in high-cost transportation aid. But as with anything, the devil is in the details, so we need to wait for some of that. But tomorrow noon, WASB is conducting a Capitol Chat, and it is an online event, and it will go into the budget details. So if you have a chance tomorrow afternoon, go to the WASB website, check that out, or they do record these, so after tomorrow, this will be posted on the WASB website, and you can go back and review that. And then just to add one piece that deals with CISA. Last night, we did at our CISA board meeting approve the retirement of Jeff Dickert for June of '22. So CISA will be hiring a new agency administrator. And the board, as a board, we are looking at that process and looking at getting some assistance from a search firm to help us come up with the very best possible new agency administrator for CISA 7. So that's what I have at this point.
So does anybody understand how the property tax credit relief plan is, the logistics of it?
And no, it isn't going to really help us.
Okay, but I mean, I'm trying to, if anybody knows just what it amounts to.
No, and not at this point. And not raising the revenue limits is not helping, and not looking at the whole enrollment, declining enrollment, and the impact that that has. As I mentioned in my update, the Press Times out of Green Bay has been doing a series of articles on school funding, and particularly focusing on the referendum issue. And they've made some very strong statements about what needs to happen. We need to go back to that funding formula which was developed 30 years ago, and things were very different. And the funding formula has not kept up with inflation. But there seems to be little interest on the part of legislators in doing anything about this. And right now, there's so much divisiveness between the governor and...
Well, I was just wondering, you know, the whole property tax relief, whatever it is, if that's going to negatively affect, how it's going to negatively affect.
It could, yes.
Yeah. But nobody knows yet what.
No. No, I'm sure WASB will be keeping a very close eye on that, and so will the Fair Aid Coalition. And it's thanks to the Fair Aid Coalition that we will even be getting more high-cost transportation aid, because we've really been fighting for that. But yeah, it's a real struggle right now. And I talked to somebody in Madison the other day, and they said, you know, instead of people working together to try to make this go for kids, we've got adversity on both sides, and it's not a good situation.
Okay, Mr. Bear will update us on the school edition dedication.
Thank you. I shared a handout with you that looks like this. You just want to take a look at that. On the back side of that handout, I put some of the details in relationship to the dedication, which will take place on Sunday, August 22nd at 2 o'clock. The dedication ceremony itself will be about 30 minutes. To follow, we will have tours of the building till about 4 o'clock. Item number 2 there is the program agenda. The only thing that I'd like to highlight there is we do have special addresses from Sevastopol students, and we've selected the students using some criteria at each one of our schools. So there'll be a high school, middle school, and elementary student represented. Mrs. Linda Waite will also do a speech, and so will Mr. Carl Schultz, if he's allowed to. So. Participants, we really don't know who to expect or how many to expect, but we initially started with an idea of maybe 300, but we doubled that because there has been a lot of interest and enthusiasm. So we're hoping for 600. We're prepared for 600, I'll say. And I think we can meet that based on the tours of the old building. I think there is a lot of interest out there, so that's a good number. Invitations, special invitations will go to those people listed. General invitations will be mailed, but we're also going to use several media outlets, press releases, social media in order to inform our community, parents, students. We want as many people there as possible to help us celebrate. The highlight then, of course, will be the dedication, the ribbon cutting itself, but the building tours will take place after that, and we have, well, our plan is not to lead tours, but instead give everybody a map on their program so that they can kind of take a tour themselves and see what they want to see. But we'll have faculty throughout the building to greet them, so nobody will get lost. There'll be a faculty member every few classrooms, and they'll talk about their spaces. We're also having some poster boards printed that talk about the educational advantages of our new building, because it's just not a building. It really has brought a lot to the educational process, the new technology, the STEM lab, the hands-on opportunity. So we don't want them to just think new building. We want them to think new opportunities for our students. So we're going to have that showcased. And then there's going to be cookies to kind of commemorate that Cindy's going to make for all of us. So
Which they may not-
that's going to be my highlight.
Which they may not take into the school, they can pick up and take home.
Yeah, that's on the in the entryway on the way out, but
Yeah.
that's going to be my
That's their
highlight. I'm going to have
party
two. Any questions on that event?
And this is the goal, we can start telling everybody?
Absolutely,
I have a
yeah.
lot of people are asking about it, I'm like, go see the open house, because they want to see the inside.
Yes.
I think we're gonna have a
Yes.
big showing.
900 people came to the dedication of the 1924 school.
1924 school.
When that school
Well,
was
that was a lot.
dedicated, the newspaper accounts say there were 900 people there.
Yeah.
Me and my kid were in a Green Bay gas station, Caden, and my graduate, but he had a Sevastopol shirt on.
Yeah.
And some lady in Green Bay is like, hey, they're tearing down your school. And we had a whole conversation about it. So it is, the word's getting out there, it's kind of neat. She had driven by and saw it and coming down.
One thing that I would notice, we did move it outside the front entryway, the dedication portion, because we don't have a space to accommodate 600 people. So it'll be outside. Seating will be available for special guests and those that need it, but we're not going to have 600 chairs set up in the parking lot either. It'll be standing room only. We've asked Mr. Lidke to keep his speech to 2 minutes. We'll see if he can get it. So.
Any other questions for Mr. Bear?
Yes, Joe?
Last meeting, I brought forward wanting to name the multi-purpose room the Carl Schultz Pioneer Room. And Jerry, I always appreciate your insight and recommendations, but I'm differing with you on that one.
That's fine.
The multi-purpose room of the
First.
1924 school has remained that for 30 years. I do not see the multi-purpose room in this school needing to change to anything else. And if there were anyone that would understand the need to change the use, to change the name, it would be the Schultz family. So I'm bringing this back to you. Dave, you asked me the other night why this person at this time. Is it important to me?
Well, this time, my question was
It
why
is
this time?
important to me.
You may
It
have
is not
answered it.
important to me because I have a personal relationship with them. I think this individual has met all of the criteria in our policy to receive this recognition. I'm like a lot of the community members who remember frustrations with him when I was in school. He was a strict disciplinarian. He had policies that made no sense at all. But as an adult, I grew to respect that he did the right thing for the right time and probably things that are still appropriate now. So he did have an impact on education and students. The policy. The person must be of exemplary moral character. Does anybody dispute that? No. Criteria 2. Have made an outstanding contribution to education, human community, or have displayed outstanding leadership, or be a person of historical significance. He spent over 40 years in education with Sevastopol as a teacher, principal superintendent, and superintendent. He managed the building of the 1965 school, just as Mr. Lutke is now, and then he managed the consolidation of the rest of the outlying schools into that school mid-year. Not a small task. I'm not going to name anyone, but I've heard from many individuals that he had an influence on their life as students. They were on a bad path. They were troublemakers. They were not doing as well academically. And he was able to harness their interests and get them on a better path, mostly because of his interest in the environment and conservation. That was of interest to mostly of those young men who were on the bad path, and he got them going in a better path, both academically and socially. He had the foresight to encourage the school board at that time to purchase that land on Dunn Road, which is now the Pioneer Ecological Reserve. He saw it as a learning space, and it's been renewed as a learning space. There were significant firsts during his time as superintendent. Sevastopol was the first non-smoking school in the state, the first in the county to bring its special education students into this building. Formerly, special education students were housed off-site, only special education kids, and he was the first in the county to see fit to bring a teacher into the building and have those kids here. After his retirement, he continued to interact with students, inviting them to field trips at his business, The Farm, and he came into the school and provided programs for classes on animals and the environment.
What year did he retire?
1990, about 1986. He was community-minded. In 1991, he led a group of 8th graders to study the contamination in Clark Lake. Invasive species were taking over and the lake was in danger. The study and actions recommended by that group helped the restoration of the lake, removal of the invasive species, and proper management of the Clark Lake Dam. That story made statewide news. And after he was retired. Another project, another interest of his community-wide was the 81-acre Dunes Lake watershed, which is in the Shivering Sands Nature Preserve on Glidden Drive, an important watershed as it feeds directly into Lake Michigan. In June of 2017, the Door County Environmental Council wrote, Carl Schultz is a man with integrity. For decades, he was the leader of Sevastopol School District and holds the record for being the longest-standing school superintendent in the history of Wisconsin. But more importantly than that, he is a great leader for his promotion of a healthy Door County environment. So I think that this individual hits all of the marks to receive the honor of having the now multi-purpose room named the Carl Schultz Pioneer Room, because he is the pioneer's pioneer. Carl.
To add to your points of what he had done and to go along with the equality equity, he was the first superintendent in Door County to hire female bus drivers. My mother being the first one. So, because at that time, no females drove bus.
Yeah. And then criteria 3 has been retired for 5 years, so it's not usual for the president to make a motion, but I move that what is known as the multi-purpose room be named the Carl Schultz Pioneer Room in recognition of his many contributions, with a plaque also commemorating his contribution to the school, students, society, and community, and that the dedication occur at the school dedication on August 22nd.
I would second that motion.
Discussion?
I would clarify, since I had a point, I think there's 2 issues on the table. One, do we name a building after someone, period? That's the first question. And what I would say, I think Mr. Wyden answered that the other night when we were talking, because I'm not from here, but I'm like, for 100 years, and this is just for discussion, right? But I think it's important, right? This is a 100-year decision. So why now? That's what I asked, and I didn't know. I don't know the history, but Mr. Wyden made a comment that, in his perspective, and I won't say how many years, but you've been here a lot more years than me, and his comment that I really appreciated was, he sees this new building as like a new start, a brand new thing. You know, as me as an engineer, it's just another project you built a building, right? But so with that sentiment, but I think it's important we recognize both. So number 1, we are choosing to name a building after someone, and then number 2, select somebody, and you pretty much addressed number 2. So that's a discussion I just wanted to share. So.
And I would add to your comments, Dave, that we need to be prepared then for someone else to come up with naming something else after somebody. I think of the football field and the renovation going on there. Might someone want to name that the Gene Water Street football field? And I'm not saying I'm opposed to that. I'm just saying we need to, as a board, understand that that may well occur.
And we have a policy for that. Maybe we need to be more explicit in the policy as to what those criteria are that would allow someone to simply be honored in that way without a financial contribution.
We're just naming a room, right? We're not naming a building.
Naming a building.
A room.
Well, whatever. Okay, I can restate my thing. Is we're naming something after somebody.
Part of a
and I just wanted to make sure we talked about it and we all understood the significance of it.
Right.
I'm not, nowhere did I say I'm against it, by the way, but I'm following the process, and I get to make a comment on this. So I just needed to make sure people
When
understood.
Lisa was talking about, my caution was that, in my experience, be careful naming things after people, because those rooms often get changed to other rooms. But you name somebody someplace now, could become a closet or a storage facility 50 years old. But hey, we're not going to be around to see that happen.
I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think that multi-purpose room is going to stand. And if it has to become a closet, no one would understand the need for change in school better than the Carl Schultz family.
You know, in an instance like this, I personally don't think, you know, it's not the structure or the facility or anything, it's a recognition process. So, I mean, that, to me, that's what it's all about, whether it's a room, the multi-purpose room, or the gymnasium, or whatever, it's recognition. And it occurs, I mean, at all levels of education. I can tell you, from college, university level, that, you know, the Cole Center, for instance, you know, Herb Cole donated millions of dollars to have that facility, but yet then the basketball court was named, you know, in someone else's honor. So it's a recognition process.
I think, you know, there's not a lot of people that have done as much, you know, what they did for Paula Simons and that bench they have down in the elementary gym. I mean, that's just, every time I see that, just, you know, kind of tugs at your heart, whatever, seeing that. Carl Schultz is another, Paula Simons, and I mean, speak of somebody that has done great things for our community, our school, tirelessly gave all they had to it. I mean, there's not a lot of people. You know, I don't know who's worthy, who's not, or who makes that decision of, you know, what they did for Paul is great. I mean, the gym's not named after her, but it was nice. I mean, that was a nice recognition. It's there for her. Whether you name the multi-purpose room the Carl Schultz, or whether you put a plaque in the auditorium recognizing his commitment or his contributions to our district. I think it's worthy to do something. Do we need to name a room after him? I don't know, but I think we could do something for his
Mr. Hill?
So just one quick thought, and probably being a Packer fan, the first thing that comes to my mind are the entrances to Lambeau Field. Obviously, they're named after sponsors for good reason, but just thinking about somebody significant, you enter a building, you're going to pass, you would notice the Charles Schultz entrance, you know what I mean? You know, I certainly don't know if that would be as significant as naming the room, but just a thought that popped into my head.
It's the name Pioneers that has been important to him. And because he was a pioneer in so many areas, I think that room is appropriate for him. I mean, we could say the Carl Schultz Atrium, but
I was just throwing it up there.
yeah.
Definitely worthy of, you know.
So let's call the question and vote and see where it stands. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Then probably going forward, when someone does want to place something in the school, not saying the Paula Simons bench wasn't worthy, but when they want to place something in the school, they should probably get approval rather than just
Yes.
putting that item and putting that person's name on it.
Right, we just ran with that one, right?
But it was a good thing.
It was a good
It
thing,
was- it
right,
was
but
a
we
good-
could have
it
come
was a
here and got
good
your
thing.
But I get what
blessings,
you're
right?
saying. but
Yeah,
that's-
we could have come and got the blessing here, right?
It was a good thing, but now that's a precedent, so what about the next thing that might not be a good thing?
Well, now we know to bring it here for the policy, the board can vote.
Well, this is a little different. I mean, you have history and tradition, I mean, going back 40-some years with this person, I think. So, I mean, this is a height that, to me, when you're gonna name stuff, you gotta go over some deep, tall hoops, which Carl Schultz does, you know.
And Mr. Lutke made, I can't remember your comment, that it was kind of a link.
Well, I like the fact that
A
we
link
brought
to the
some
past.
bricks and some
Now
cornerstones.
you got some rocks.
And yeah, we've got a couple rocks now too, and the handrails from the old into the new. And Mr. Schultz was here in the past, and he's gonna tie us together too, so I really appreciate
So I think most living Sevastopol alumni, they identify with Carl Schultz. So I think it's very appropriate.
Okay, any other discussion on that? None. We're gonna skip board goals tonight because our meeting is getting kind of long. We need to pick a date. Last meeting we approved, or meeting before, we approved the new superintendent training platform by Wisconsin Association of School Boards. and they're ready for us to pick a date for training now. That will be a kind of a Zoom meeting training.
It'll be a Zoom, and it'll be about 1 hour in length. I met with Cheryl Stinsky from WKSB on Monday virtually, and I had sent her our form, and then she, of course, asked their form. She reviewed our form. She thinks our form is pretty decent. She, of course, likes hers better, but everyone likes their own better, but she said they're comparable. And I think the training she's going to provide is going to be well worth it. She cannot on July 21st, July 27th, or August 23rd, 24th, and 25th. Those are the 5 nights she's not available.
I would put, considering your building, also all the stuff going on in the building, I would put it back to at least October, November. Just so the smoke clears and then we're back to routine thinking routinely. And all these distractions are gone. So, I mean, there's stuff because
I would go September, because August we have the annual meeting, the ribbon cutting, the in-service days, we roll into school. I'm pretty sure we're not done with the building project. But then September we'll be done with the building project, and then...
You think you're done with the building project. I would say October, because you're not going to be done with...
But we're talking about a 1 hour training.
It's a 1 hour training.
Because we got to do it before we get to December, January.
I'd say October then. Then the dust will have settled. Just a word of this.
How about September? Come on,
Give
me September.
He's the guy that's
I gotta
most
keep on.
stressed. If he's saying September,
So if you're bored stressed in September,
I don't believe in stress, so let's go September.
We will have that discussion, Jerry. If you're stressed in September, we'll get
Jerry,
support.
it's
an
an
hour.
hour. It's an hour.
oh,
Okay, so throw out.
Are there any
throw out-
days-
And your busy
tell me, are there any
schedule.
dates in September
Last
that don't
week of
work for you?
September.
It'll be an
We
evening.
can do it.
Are there any September nights that don't work for you?
Let's go to the
Because
last.
Cheryl didn't give me any nights in September, she only gave me July and August. So is
The
there anything in
8th
September
does
that
not
doesn't
work for me.
8, 9, and 10 are bad for me.
No, 8, 9, 10. Well, it won't be a Friday night. It's gonna be an evening session, so I would think it'd be Monday through Thursday, and there won't be a Friday night.
how about the 28th?
You signed it
Are you
October.
out of town that
That's
day?
awesome.
No.
Is that what you're asking for?
You wanted the last day in September almost, is it?
Put off till tomorrow what you can do today,
Right.
my philosophy always is.
So then 8, 9, 10, does anyone have any conflicts in September?
I can't the week of the 21st, 22nd.
Okay.
Third Wednesday, I can't. 15th, I would not.
Well, that's the first day of Hispanic Heritage Month. so.
Well, and the 7th is the first day of schools, we probably should maybe.
Yeah, I'll be
Sure, my
like
kids
shooting
will
for
be
the
so
week of the
I'd
13th. I'll
avoid
say.
it.
Yeah,
Good idea, week of the
I'm gonna shoot for the
13th.
week of the 13th, but not the 15th, because someone said no on the 15th.
No, oh, I guess I said that.
We have school board on the 16th.
And we could do it an hour before the school board meeting if
Yeah.
you wanted.
Sweet.
Would that work?
Yeah, why don't we do that?
I will see if
Yeah,
she's
do that.
available that night, okay.
Jerry, you open that day?
Right now I am, but you better hurry up.
If
I
not,
will see if I can get on the
I may
16th
have
at 6 o'clock.
a meeting at Birmingham's that afternoon.
Okay, I will work on the 16th at 6 p.m.
Perfect.
That'll probably be the only day in September she can't.
Right.
The town park agreement.
Well, you have 2 pages in your board packet. One's on the, it reviews the agreement we have on a 3-year basis, which ends at the end of this spring. Then I have composed a letter after having our budget committee. First paragraph, I go over the fact that it's $3,500, which we agreed upon in 2018. And then this spring, we had posted 16 games on 7 different dates, and 4 of those times, we utilized both diamonds, and 3 different times, our school district had an assistant preparing the diamond, which is the responsibility of the town of Sevastopol. We know they were in a pinch at different times, so I kind of figured that hourly rate for custodial and how many hours our staff spent over there. I am recommending we pay the full amount, $3,500, but we note that, and then between our athletic committee and their town park and rec board, come up with a new agreement for hopefully multiple years. And in fairness to both groups, I don't think a $3,500 base fee is the right way to go, because there may be a spring where we get snowed out the first half of the season and only play the second half. Well, then we only used it a few times, we played a lot per ball game. And then there may be another time where due to scheduling, non-conference games, whatever, and no double headers, we may use it a plethora of times, and the town only gets $3,500, and they had to prepare it a whole bunch of times. So I would like the athletic committee and the town committee to get together and say, okay, what's a equitable system for both sides that's fair on both ends there? You know, and maybe there's something in there, if they don't prep the diamond, we have to send our folks over to do it, and then we get a reduced rate for that date or something. But some sort of sliding scale agreement that works, and it'd be nice if it was multiple years, so we don't have to do this every single year. But I still recommend we, in good faith, pay the $3,500 for this year, just noting that we did put some time and effort out there. I think that's a...
Someone want to make a motion to that effect?
I would make a motion to approve the town park agreement that we have. Do I need
To make the
add specific?
$3,500 payment.
Or agreed upon.
Second.
Questions or discussion?
If you vote yes, I'm gonna send this letter then tomorrow.
Yes, I definitely think that should be noted that, and as we work with the town to address those things.
Because I think this is fair. Obviously, I wrote it up, but I think it's fair for both.
I
Trying to
think
put
it-
on my hat is either.
Well, the discussion we had too is, we're trying to build a long-term relationship, right? And we talk about the history, but now we're looking to the future. And that's why the discussion was, pay it out of good faith, but let's try to get some understanding that, you know, like any agreement, you do your part, like a marriage, or you do your part, I do our part, and then sometimes things happen and somebody else picks it up, and that's okay. But this way it'll be probably fair, because this will roll into like all our 5-year planning and stuff like that, and some other money that will go down the road too, so I think it's a good plan.
Any other discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Move to new business and the employee handbook.
All the
Long reading.
rates have been changed for insurance, and all the rates of pay have been changed as have been previously approved by the board. The language change is on page 31. Snow days give our support staff complications because some people are first shift, some are second shift, in fact, some are here before school starts. And if we have early out or late start or a whole day off, different employees are affected differently. Sometimes if we send the kids home early, we'll tell the PM custodial crew, don't come in if you don't feel safe, drive on the roads. And a couple say, well, I can make it, and they make it in here, and then they work and the others don't. Or they come in for a couple hours, and they say, no, I'm gonna get home before it gets dark, and they go home. And so we have a hodgepodge of things that occur. So what this is saying is you get 1 day's worth of pay, and if you know, the daytime custodian worked the whole day, but then the night ones only work part, to be fair, everyone's gonna get 1 full day, even if it's 2 hours here and 4 hours there, or however it works out. And it's a nightmare for Carl to keep track of, but he needs a hobby in the wintertime.
So they get a minimum of an 8-hour.
They'll get 8 hours not lost pay due to inclement weather, and it's not dependent on whether I get 2 hours because it was a 2-hour delay, but you came in, I didn't come in, it's flat for everybody.
Actually, let me clarify that. They get what their normal workday would be.
Right.
Yeah.
So for an 8, it would be 7 hours. For a
Exactly.
kitchen, it would be 5.5. Whatever your normal
Whatever your
workday
normal-
would be.
Right, I shouldn't say 8 hours, that's.
Yes, Dave.
Yeah.
So for every snow day, it's this way?
No,
Just
the first one.
Just the first one.
So you're not gonna get paid for, you'll get paid for 1 complete snow day if needed. Whatever your normal workday is.
Right.
So that may be broken up
Just,
in,
we're trying to be nice, instead of every snow day, it's 1 snow day.
The
instead of
first
no
snow
other
day of the year, Mother Nature's taking away your pay. Okay, so we're helping them out. It's always been a little bit like that, and we're just trying to be consistent that everyone gets 1 of their regular days. Because some people have 5 hours, some are 8, whatever, and the weather comes at whatever time it does. So we're trying to be fair to everybody. You get 1, everyone gets 1 of their days. And then they can always take.
And it was
personal
unfair
time.
because some would drive through the snow and others wouldn't, is that?
Right, or
Is that a
we
fair
do a
thing or
2 hour
something?
late and someone else would, you know, say, well, I stayed my whole day, you know, first shift custodian would stay all day and the others would say, well, we're not coming in. Well, then the person said, well, I worked all day and got paid, but they didn't work and they got paid. Was that fair for the same storm? This way?
well, what also came into effect
Well, wait,
was.
did we used to pay them on snow days?
They've gotten one in the past, but it'd be the first.
Oh, so we've always
incident.
done that.
But except be the first incident, so you might only get 2 hours of of it, and
I
I
forgot
might
the
get
history.
4.
Very good.
And then so wait, they got 4, I only got 2, you know?
Well, and what someone were asking me, like this past year, we had a 2-hour delay. They said, I'll just take those 2 hours unpaid and wait for a full day. And I'm like, well, that's not how the
book said
The
first
book
time.
says
So
it was the
we're-
first
we're
one.
First increment weather, yeah.
So this way, they can kind of decide how they want to do it. If they take, I want to take the first, 2-hour delay unpaid and wait for a full day, well, we may not get one of them. So that's their choice.
So this has been on the books for a while?
Yeah, it's just, we want a little clearer, where it's 1 full of your work day, 1 full.
Just how many companies give their salary, their wage, hourly people pay on a snow day? So
I
I
don't
didn't,
know.
that's my, what's that?
Right. I don't know how many do.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it depends if you're under a
But that's already on the books, I guess. so-
If you're on a paid time off system, and an employee gets to select whether or not they want to take care of it.
Well, it's different. If they want to take time off, they can do that anytime they want.
I know, but I mean. if
This
you
is an
use your
additional,
paid time-
so that's a neat benefit. The school takes very good care of their people. If anyone doubts that, right?
Well, we'll see that later in the survey too. Yeah, we take.
Okay.
good care of our stuff.
Thank you for explaining that, sir.
If there are no other questions, I just have, I don't know how this would complicate bringing that document to the board, but if the board could receive a red line,
Yes.
the changes would be in red, so
Red,
we
yes.
know what the changes are.
Okay,
We
I
don't have to
couldn't
read
tell
the
what the
whole-
changes were.
okay.
Yeah.
You didn't have it memorized?
No, I didn't.
So,
I had
that's-
to go back to last year's and page through it, and like, oh, that changed.
So if that's, or like the student handbooks are the same thing, if we can get a red
Yes.
line copy, that would be helpful.
Well,
Now,
I'm sure
I'll-
someone can train someone on those tracking abilities.
So did we have a motion to approve? No, motion to approve this, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carried. Now we have the notice to parents and guardians on academic standards.
Annually, we do this. The report card, there was no report card last year, so the most recent one will still remain posted.
I would move to approve the notice of educational options for students who reside in the school district.
Are we doing something new, or did you just say the old one we're not reposting?
We have the most recent one up there. This past year, there wasn't a report card, so the last one remains up there until it gets replaced by the new
So my
one.
point, we do need a motion right now to do it?
Yes, yeah, you're supposed to annually do this, yes.
So there is a motion.
Sorry.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I
Opposed?
just have one question for clarification. When I read this, if you send your kid to a private school, grades 9 through 12, they cannot be in the interscholastic athletics. That if you homeschool your student for grades 9 and 12, they can be in the interscholastic.
Correct, that's a WI ruling.
Well, if you're sending your kid to a private school,
All right, so
they
let's say
play
you're-
the interscholastic with the private school. If you're homeschooling them, then they have to participate in the sports in the district that they live in.
Well, but that's not 100% accurate because the private school may not offer the same sports
Yeah.
as the residential district.
So why the discrimination against the private school?
Because they're members of WI as well, so when you choose to go there, that's who you play with then.
They may be members of WI.
They may. They have the opportunity to become one.
Well, it's a little bit like our kids can't just decide to go play football with Sturgeon Bay.
Right.
They have to
No,
play
I'm just
here.
thinking about somebody who sends their kid down to, where's the Lutheran school,
Yeah,
and then they can't come here and play on the soccer.
correct. They have to play with
Well,
the
no, they
sports
play
that
with
NEW
Ron
has.
Huh?
They would play with Ron Colley.
I'm talking about okay, that's it, okay. I guess so.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of private schools that don't have any athletic programs, just private schools.
Well, we don't have one up here, first of all, and number two is, when you make that decision, all decisions have consequences. I was just talking to my kids about that, right? So if you choose to go to that school, your kid probably isn't gonna have that sport
I
if it's
guess
not there.
currently that's true, unless there's a private school that pops up.
Well, let me give you an
Order in
example.
Green Bay.
Let me give you an example. Up in Shawano, there's a Lutheran high school that only has 17 kids in it. They don't have their own sports program, they're joined with Shawano. So because they are joined with Shawano High School, they have to play with Shawano because they elected to go to that school.
And what those two schools did was form a co-op, which was approved by both
So that
conferences.
it's,
and-
okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the Lutheran school on your side have a high school. Then we
They
allow
would-
them
They would have to
Possibly
co-op with us
co-op
because they're in our
basketball.
district.
Okay, so we would allow them to play in our
Yes.
sports.
Well, we'd ask them, we'd say, you
Go on.
want to co-op
Never
or
mind.
not?
Well, we also ask them if their kids want to play our middle school too. You know, we invite them to play in our middle school
We have
since
a
they're over here.
cooperative agreement with them, like we have with Sturgeon Bay for swimming or Gibraltar for boys soccer.
Yeah, that's a co-op, yeah. The same thing.
I mean, there's island kids that play with Gibraltar, isn't
Yep, they
there,
have a
for, like,
co-op, yep.
baseball and stuff?
Yep, they have a co-op.
Well, middle school kids have already.
The other
What's
thing
that?
that
The middle
does
school
sound
kids
bump
already play for
Gibraltar up
church.
into a different
Madam Chair, we'll call
class
the
for
question, Madam Chair.
competition. So,
We went down and
all in favor on that, say aye.
Aye.
Just vote on that once more. Opposed? Motion carried. I'll look for a motion on these three resignations individually.
Move to approve the resignation of Lynn Tomajanovich.
I'll second that.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Missy Fori, elementary secretary.
Move to approve the resignation of Marissa Flory as elementary secretary and thank her for her many years of experience.
Second.
Questions or discussion?
If I could just throw out, as I'd mentioned in my report, that we're far along in the process. Obviously, you'll see something a little bit later this evening. But one thing that's not included in that is that we had an unusual number of applicants, over 20 for that particular position. And very qualified candidates as well. We had a number of people with school secretary experience as well as office experience. So
Good
Checks are
position to
running
be in.
it's a nice problem to have.
Checks are coming to an end.
There's a motion and a second from Marissa Fori. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Amy Lautenbach, high school secretary.
move to approve the resignation of Amy Lautenbach as the middle school, high school secretary.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next, we'll get an overview of the senior exit survey results.
Even I have this. That's all. It's okay. No, I mean, I got the wrong one.
Staff, he wants to use first.
Yeah, that's what the agenda says. All right. Thanks. Go back to screen up there. So this spring, student perceptions surveyed the students in the class of 21, which just graduated. I think everyone took it, right, Mr. Barrett?
Correct.
Yeah. So we had 45 students that graduated class. No, that help?
Better.
Sure. How many years you attended school? 82% were here for 5 to 12 years. And everyone was here, the other 18% were 1 to 4 years. So everyone was here for high school. How many hours a week do you do homework? And the largest category is 1 to 5 hours a week. And the second largest was 6 to 10 and 11 to 15. A typical week during the school year, how many hours did you work for pay? 31% say I don't work for pay. That's the largest group. The second largest group is 8 to 16 hours per week. And then what the recent report cards have been like, mostly A's and B's are 76%, D's and F's 0%. So
Is that a check with our makers?
that is what they say. We receive special education, 9% identified themselves as special education students. Free and reduced lunch, 20%, which our school average had been about 33%. Are you English language learners? 7% say they are. Open enrollment, 16% of the class was open enrolled. Ethnicity, 87% white, 11% Hispanic, 2% identified as black. Gender, 62% male, or female, sorry about that, and 38% male. Mr. Bear wants that noted when we look at who participates in which groups, that it's, 4 out of 10. Survey
Did all the boys take the survey?
They did, yes.
Future plans, how helpful are each of the following people in deciding what to do after high school? On a 1, 2, 3 scale, a parent and guardian, 93% are somewhat helpful or to very helpful. That's the largest percentage is your parent and guardian. 88% next said a friend. School teacher, 84%. Other relatives, 72%. School counselor, 71%. Their employer, 50% turned to those. And then college recruiter, 52%, college counselor, 55%, school administrator, 55%, job recruiter, 29%, and military recruiter, 25%. What do you plan on doing after high school graduation? 10 to 4-year college is 55%, that's the largest group. Attended trade or technical school, 16%. Entered directly in the workforce, 9%. Attended 2 years of college and plans to transfer to 4-year college is 7%. Attended 2-year college, 7%, and 4% are undecided, with 2% apprenticeship, and no one was entering the military in this class. What is the highest degree you expect to receive? 45% expect to receive their bachelor's degree, and 22% their associate degree, 16% don't know, and 13% believe they're going to get a master's at some point. Only 2% said high school diploma is as high as they're going to go, and 2% think they're going to get their PhD. That's where the 5-year survey will help us out and see where they're going. If visit college that interests you, and I don't know how COVID would affect this because a lot of the college visits weren't allowed during that time frame, but 67% said yes, 24% no. Then you got the 9% said not planning going to college, so why would they take the time to go, I guess. Is college education valued by your family? 82% of our families in the senior class value college education. And 13% say no, and 5% say I'm not going. Has anyone in your immediate family, parents, siblings graduated from college? 76%, so 3 out of 4. Career planning. How interested are you in each of the following career clusters? So they could choose more than one. Science, technology, engineering, mathematics, 22% is the largest. Business management administration was tied with arts, audiovisual technology, and communication at 15%. Health science, 17%. Ag, food, natural resources, 16%. Education and training, 13%. And marketing, sales, 10%. The remaining were less than 10%. I know what I want to do for a career job when I'm an adult. 25% are absolutely sure, and 58% are pretty sure. I think that's pretty good, because I think back when I was that age, I don't know. 13% not sure, and 4%, well, pretty honest, said no clue.
Ignorance is bliss, isn't
it? Personal reflection. 84% I get involved in activities that interest me. 84% also said I'm able to get through challenging times. 77% said if I commit to a task, I will do what it takes to get her done. 83% I work well with people with cultural and backgrounds that are different from mine, while 82% say they feel like they can be themselves. 79% say they have a good relationship with adults. 75% say I feel sorry for others when they are hurting. 80% say I help others when I see a need. 77% say they work well on a team, and 72% say I exercise at least 3 times per week. 75% say I work well with my peers. 58% say I feel comfortable asking for help when I need it. I plan ahead, 61%. When I accomplish, learn a skill, I push myself to learn something new, 60% agree with that. 61% say I know how to resolve a conflict in a healthy way. And then I get enough sleep most nights, 55%. I manage my time well, 50%. When I feel stressed, I know how to cope, is 52%. And I make healthy eating choices, 45%. My school. I feel safe at my school. Always or usually is 84%. There's 1 or more adults in my school who care about my future, 83%. And there was at least 1 adult in school that I could talk to about my classwork when needed, 79%. I felt I was treated fairly at school, 73%. There was at least one adult in school that I could talk to about a personal problem, 73%, and I felt respected at school, 67%. Those numbers are good, but we always strive to get them even better. How do you feel your school has prepared you in the following areas? Math was the highest, math was the highest at 86%, Phy-Ed and Health, 84%, English, Language Arts, 75%, Social Studies, 68%, FACE, 63%, Science, 65%, Art, 61%, Music, 56%, Industrial Tech, 56%, Technology Education, computers and such, 58%, Business Ed, 58%, Ag, 45%, and Spanish, 56%. My learning, participation in a class, 75% say always or usually they participated. 77% say they put their best effort in their schoolwork. And as far as challenging themselves with the classes they took, 65% agree with that. I felt comfortable asking my teacher for extra help when needed, 66%, so 2/3 felt they could ask a teacher for extra help. Even if there was no grades given, I'd still do my best work, 57%. I felt comfortable reading out loud in class, 49%. And I felt comfortable speaking, presenting in class, drops to 42%. During high school, I had the opportunity to work as part of a team. 80% say they did. Be creative, came in second with 78%. Pick some projects, activities that interested me was 70%. Be a leader, 65%. Volunteer in my school, 60%. Volunteer in my community, which was at 48%. I explored careers that may interest me after high school. Class projects was 59%. A specific class, career exploration, work experience, community action, etc., 54%. Presentations from guest speakers, 51%. Field trips, 51%. Job shadowing, 27%. Internships at 16%. And other, I'm not sure what the other would be, but that's 11%. Life skills. Solving problems was the highest, 81%. Setting goals, 79%. Respecting other cultures, 73%. Critical thinking, 76%. Communicating new ideas, 76% as well. Listening to others' perspectives, 71%. Identifying problems, 76%. How to apply for a job, resume, cover letter, interviewing, 63%. I'm kind of surprised by that because all of them take the mock interview process with our teachers. Health and wellness, 68%. Politeness and manners, 2/3. And using technology to solve problems, 69%. And public speaking, 68%.
That's interesting because nobody's comfortable speaking in front of the class.
42%, but then
But
you go.
68% of them
say I
are
can do that.
prepared to
Right.
public speak.
Right, exactly, so it's kind of different. Analyzing problems, 71%. Being open and new and diverse perspectives, 3/4 of our students feel that way. Maintaining positive relationships, 68%. Managing your time, 62%. I think there was a time question earlier that said 50% had time, so. Citizenship, 68%. Understanding the importance of individual differences, 61%. The U.S. Constitution, which is a required test, 56%. Personal finance, which is of course in that as well, 54%. Coping with emotions, 51%. Coping with failure, 55%. And volunteering in the community, 44%.
How would a kid at 18 know if they're equipped to deal with failures? How would you know that? Did you know that at 18?
Know what?
That you were equipped to deal with failures.
Because it's from handing in their homework and taking tests.
I mean, that's fine, but I don't know how you can answer many of these questions at 18.
Might be a measuring tool.
It's just what they think
Where
at this
they
time
where
in
they
their life.
were,
What's that?
where they end up. A
This
measuring
is
tool.
where they think they are now.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then where
Little do they know, do
Well,
Did
you
you have a
just
difficult
wasted our
childhood,
lunch
Jerry?
here, young Jerry.
they? No, but.
So did
I
any of
never
the
thought of
following
these
interfere
questions.
with your high school education? Keeping up with more homework and greater workload was the most challenging. Mental health problems, managing their time, my study habits, illness, academic and co-curricular clubs, activities, family problems, family obligations, my understanding of course expectations, and don't feel a part of the school. So it kind of dropped down pretty good. Boyfriend, girlfriend problems, 1.57 average. Disruptive behavior in class by others, 1.5. job outside of school, peer pressure, could not get the extra help I needed, bullying, no access to technology, worried about my safety at school, and no place to study, and difficult speaking English. Here's how they feel about their satisfaction with their education they received in high school. 33% strongly agree that they're satisfied, 50% agree, so that's 83% overall. 2% don't know. So those are the ones sharing with you that don't know anything.
I mean, you don't really know if your education is good till you go out.
So you go try it? Yeah, maybe.
Try to use it.
I just wanted to comment on the slide that dealt with college education, because I think sometimes school people get a bad rap for supporting college education. They're accused of not supporting other options. And if you look at that, the family, 82% are supporting or valuing a college education. So if school people are acting in support of that, it's not just the school people, it certainly is the families as well that are supporting college education. So I think that's...
Yeah, it's our families, the ones that we...
Yeah, it's
provide
kind of a
education
delicate
for.
area to deal with, but I think it is important to recognize that there is a lot of family support and value for college education.
Like 3/4 of them had secondary education.
Yes.
Yeah, but 3/4 of their family members.
Right.
Does that mean, that doesn't necessarily mean 4-year college, though, it could be 2-year.
Yeah, does it mean college or does it mean college and tech?
Right.
4-year college and tech, or, we don't know that.
I didn't see the survey questions, I don't know, but, yeah.
Some sort of education post-high school, I would
Post-high
assume.
school.
Yeah.
Do they give you some of these questions, do they give you percentile ratings, how our students rank nationally?
No, you'll see on the staff survey, they
I
compare
saw
us
that,
to
yeah,
districts,
but
they
it's-
do it on this.
It'd be
one.
interesting, because we see stuff like, oh my God, that's slow, and you find out, though there's a low score, everybody's scores may be at the high end of the low scores.
Jerry, I contacted them and they no longer do that for the senior exit service.
Really?
Yeah, and I asked,
I don't know.
they didn't really have an explanation, they just said that they no longer do that. They had a lot of people do.
All this data is really fascinating.
I think that,
I thought so,
I
too.
think, I'm a numbers guy, I believe those are disincentivizing.
What percentiles?
Yeah, just like we were talking about the education gap, right? The comment was, we're waiting for the national averages. Well, we all know the national averages have been dropping for years. So
Yeah,
it's
but
like, you don't have to be the slowest guy, but as long as you're not the slowest guy, the bear won't eat you. So that's why sometimes averages shouldn't be irrelevant. See what your kids are doing, it gives you information on where to focus, maybe staff improvement or building improvement. I mean, it's my one opinion, but numbers are numbers, you know.
And I think there are some areas we should explore.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think when you put the national average up there, I think Sevastopol will always do well against national averages because I'm very proud of our community. There's a reason for that. I lived all over this country. So when we always look at national averages, we're probably in better shape. But that is not where this community wants us to stop.
I'd be disappointed if we were below national average or state average.
Well, that would be, we would really get excited.
I'd be disappointed if we
It
were
would be
below.
hard, we'd have to work to do that, I think.
But I think with a time like we've had, it's good to see what the national average is compared to what it was.
Sure.
So then you can see
Yeah.
how we fared compared to the rest of the country.
Yeah.
The only place, I mean,
Still
just
valid, yeah.
put on the-
Yes, sir.
the only place I've heard about a release so far was Texas has released their academic scores. They're on their standardized tests for this past year. First state to do it. Everything's gone south because of the COVID.
Well, it would have to, because if not, you're gonna say the teachers aren't awesome. Right? If you're not in front of your teachers, it should be different.
So it's, yeah, I know, but.
It's good data.
But, I think that's gonna be really, for this board, really important information, because that's a generational thing that's gonna hit this generation forever.
This
Now,
is
what
a
are we doing?
Finish. This is a curiosity of mine, not for a big discussion, just a curiosity of mine. The family is the driver of how they decide what to do. And then there was the other question about how do you decide what to do? There were field trips, there was job shadowing, all of those questions. job shadowing is so far down there, and I know there's a lot to pack into the school day, and I know we have the apprenticeship, but it seems like the juniors should be doing more job shadowing before they decide on the apprenticeship.
Yeah,
Do we-
actually, we require job shadowing as part of our business life skills class, that job shadow. This year, though, the last year and a half, we haven't been able to do that because of COVID.
Well, do they do more than one job? Do they have opportunity to shadow different jobs?
Yeah, well, they can, absolutely, they can shadow as many as they want, they have to do one required.
Then
Is that junior or senior year?
It's senior year.
Senior year.
I think it should be junior year, because by the time you're senior, you should be thinking about what you want to do. Now they're doing college visits in the summer, and the kids have really not a clue what they really want to do. So that's a curiosity of mine, that why we don't push that more in the junior year. But not for discussion tonight, just.
No, I appreciate that, thank you very much.
We'll pick up on what Kyle and I had the opportunity to spend hours, right? At NWTC, the Green Bay campus. My takeaway that there are occupations that these kids don't even know
They
anything
don't know about.
about. What was the one who pays, oh yeah, the guy who goes up on the
Yeah, the
power lines.
lineman, yeah.
In 1 year, he'll be making over $100,000 a year. Now, I raised that once at a tech school. Well, kids don't worry about making money anymore.
No, I'm sorry.
That was my response, because they're taking their, what's the year they call it?
They said once a year, they have the new class coming in, and they can have the ones that just graduated in a 9-month program come back, welcoming the new ones. They always start they start in the summer times, because in March is when the utilities companies like to start their new folks. So they start their classes in the summertime, and so the people that got the jobs and are 1 year out come and talk to after their first year, they come and talk to the incoming class, hey, there's where I'm at, this is where you can be. And he said they all drive these really nice pickup trucks when they come, because they've all been making a lot of bank, because they can make a base salary of about 60 grand. If they work any overtime, they're up around 100 grand, and so.
The first year.
And then all those kids are impressed with these nice pickup trucks that these guys that are just a year older than them are drivers, so.
Because I don't know what you get out of a job shadow, but that type of information. And by the way, about 19-year-old, I know a 19-year-old kid who happens to be my son. He's talking to a financial advisor about his retirement at 19.
Because
Some
I was
kids are
told
thinking-
a lot of them take, what's it,
Gap year.
a gap year. I never
Jerry
heard
knew
of
what
a gap year.
was, right.
Like, oh, high school's been so hard, I gotta take a year off. Like, give me a break. But, so anyway, there's so much out there. I told them today, that this all started when TC closed down the program for fire suppression program. Because no one is interested in it. I mean, I don't know if guidance council know about it. We had ended up with 2 students and we could close it down. If you're building and construction, fire suppression, first of all, is a high-paying job. It's a clean job. It's an indoor job. It's a Monday through Friday job. Why wouldn't people just jump at that?
So that's it. The PS, my English teacher, my senior year, told me to do a study on engineering pay, and electrical engineer was the highest pay, so that's why I'm an electrical engineer. So if you don't have this in your high school, you should have this information in your high school, because it will motivate kids.
Yeah.
They realize they can be a power lineman and make a ton of money when the storms go out. It might influence them. I assumed you were doing that, but if not, that's a good idea.
Well, I think there's a breakdown, well, we can talk about that. I think there's a breakdown between NWTC and the schools of really knowing who's on first, what's on second, what's out there. Because there are just some fascinating jobs as we walk through it. If you want to get into the whole energy thing with, the
Look
green
up Bureau of
world that's
Labor and
there.
Statistics, it'll tell you all the careers and the jobs.
And maybe it's not all the job shadows, but it's getting those people into the
That's
school
what I
to
mean.
talk to kids.
Right, because the job
the
shadow
kids
takes
know
a
what's
day
out
and what do
there.
they learn, but that information, I think, would probably be far more beneficial to the kids.
Because I think the other thing, there's an electrician, and if they're the dirty jobs, I'll give you an electrician, I'm gonna be a carpenter, which are great jobs too, and we need a lot of those. But in between, there's specialties behind those things that are, that room with the whole bank of computers.
Oh, yeah.
The big mainframe computers they bought, there's a whole room just with huge mainframe computers. They could probably do their own cryptocurrency stuff there, but that's just to teach, because they can't let the kids work on the school's computers. And this is just how to program, and I mean, like, holy, it was room after room after room of stuff.
Yeah, and I think we're making strides that way.
Yeah. But anyway.
That's the question.
Could I have a minute, or?
It's up to you.
We usually don't allow guest comments after the meeting starts. We try to stay pretty stringent to that, but I'll give you a minute.
The unique thing about a teacher, you gotta realize that they're teaching the children, and these children are gonna be doing something 20 or 40 years from now, but that whatever they're gonna be doing probably hasn't even been invented yet.
Right.
You know, so there was a school where, you know, wasn't doing so with students, you know, and some years later, they came about and did this study. And they were researching about the students and, you know, how they turned out and everything. And it turned out there were 5 students that became really successful. I mean, they were, you know, tycoons in the industry, just really successful. So they were trying to determine, you know, what was it about these 5 kids? How come out of all these kids that really didn't turn out to be much, how come these 5 turned out to be so, you know, so successful? And come to find out that they all had this one teacher. So they did some searching to try to find this teacher. And she was bedridden in an old teacher's home. And they went to her and they asked her, what did you do to these kids, you know, to make them so successful? I don't know. I just love my kids.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are we ready for the staff survey now? Sure.
Do we need a crown? Do we need a crown?
So school perception has over 700 districts with their line things up. Staff engagement, student outcomes improved. This was done this last April. We had 72% responses, which is 59%, so that's a pretty good rate. Majority were in the elementary school, 47%. 49% the majority of classroom teachers. And we have a good balance here of folks that are new and more than 10 years experience. It's kind of a nice balance that we have on our staff currently. So how they did with the challenges of COVID, 21% said great and 57% said good, only 2% said poor. Your level of agreement. I had the tools and resources needed to do my job as my work environment has changed during last year. 85% strongly agreed or agreed. I was able to maintain a healthy work balance lifestyle during the COVID. 82% said yes. And I have been able to manage my stress during the COVID-19. 80% said yes. To provide a maximum education for all students, please check a maximum of 5 of your highest priorities. At 70%, provide additional intervention support services for struggling students was number 1. 59%, second place, was better prepare students for life after high school, whether this be college or career. 46% said receive training and development opportunities to enhance skills. 43% said develop innovative programs to improve student learning, and there's a tie for 5th at 38% for expand services to students with special needs and increase the number of hands-on project-based learning opportunities. Change readiness. 62% say there's a process for evaluating the effectiveness of new initiatives. The percentile, that score comes from all the other schools that have the same demographics as us that participate in the same survey. So we're in the 74th percentile in that. Our district's committed to making needed improvements as they see identified. 87% agree with that. They're strongly agree or agreed. Our district has a culture of open dialogue, 75%. Our district strives to achieve consensus on areas that need improvement, 69%, 58th percentile. Student achievement. Overall, the school offers a high-quality academic program. 100% agree with that, which is in the 92nd percentile. Learning targets and curriculum objectives for my job assignment are clear. 94% agree with that statement. Student discipline is handled consistently by, in consistent manner by all staff, 58%. I have been provided the resources to achieve district learning targets and curriculum objectives, 93% strongly agree with that. Academic needs of our students are being met, 85%. Students have access to additional support when needed, 84% agree with that. The social and emotional needs of the students are being met, 73%. Engagement, my job is personally satisfying, 97% agree with that. It would take a lot for me to leave the district, 87%, which is the 92nd percentile. I'm proud of our district, 97%, which is 88th percentile. The amount of work I'm asked to do is reasonable, 83%. My work contributes to the success of our district, everyone feels that way. I'd recommend this district to others seeking employment, 92%. I enjoy being involved in district-affiliated activities outside of the normal school day, 89%. Communication, I'm kept well informed about matters important to my work, 94%. School department's information is communicated effectively, again, 94%. The district clearly communicates with me about important issues, 90%. I feel comfortable sharing my ideas and opinions, 78%. School board policies and procedures affecting me are clearly communicated, 85%. I have a good understanding of the goals of the district, 87%. How do you rate the communication from the different departments? Technology rocks it at 100%. Transportation, 87%. District administrator, 85%. School board, 68%. Building principals, 93%. Custodial maintenance staff, 89%. And food service, 86%. Our culture. Our school department is effective in assimilating new employees, 90% agree with that. My coworkers are willing to help me if I have a heavy workload, 96% agree or strongly agree. Our school department operates as a team, 94%. Our school works hard to find ways to improve, 95%. I have adequate opportunities to participate in decisions that affect me, 77%. I can bring change in my school or department, 80% feel that way. Academic expectations, it's pretty even between who's low and high, and the vast majority, 88%, say we're right where we should be. Equity, now this is a new section on the survey. This is the first time we've had this over the years. And when I looked at this part, the last two are the ones that we talk about as an ad team specifically, but our school has a process to ensure every student has a connection, at least one adult in the school, 87% of the staff feel that way. All students in our school are treated with respect, 82%. All students in our school are treated fair when disciplined, 76% agree with that. Our school works to honor and celebrate the culture and backgrounds of students, 72%. All students in our school are accepted for their values and beliefs, 83%. All students in our school are given equitable opportunities to learn and experience success, 82%. And then I have the training I need to understand the background and culture of the students from my work, 79%. And those bottom two, if you look at our percentile, 16 and 32, you won't see any of the numbers on the survey that we're that low in the percentile. So as administrator, we talked on Tuesday and said, okay, if we're in the 16th percentile for the training, then on our professional development days, we need to focus on this so that they have the opportunity to know the background and culture of the students they work with. And we also have to look at the equitable opportunities to learn and experience success for the kids. Work environment. I'm satisfied with technology support, again, 100%. I'm satisfied with tech availability, 97% are happy, and it's all 98th percentile there. I have enough time to do my job effectively, 81%, which is 99th percentile as well. I have the flexibility to do my job in the way I think is most effective, 92%. I received the training I need to do my job effectively, 94%. I have the materials and supplies I need to do my job, 97%. So we're doing pretty well in the work environment. Based on my interaction with students, I feel safe at work, 99% agree with that. I feel valued by our community, 87%. I feel supported by leadership when I make a decision, 89%. Based on my interactions with other adults, I feel safe at work, 94%. Our classroom, buildings, and grounds are well maintained, 83%. Health and wellness, healthy nutritional practices, 91%. Able to sustain a healthy work-life balance, 89%. Enough sleep, 76%. Engage in 30 or more minutes of physical activities 3 more times or more a week, 81%. District wellness committee is effective, 75% feel that way. The pace of implementing new initiatives is appropriate, 84%. I manage my stress well, 84%. Development and recognition, I receive credit and recognition when I do a good job, 91% agree with that. I receive meaningful and timely feedback that helps me improve my performance, 88%. I had adequate opportunities for professional training and development, 87%. And the district's professional learning days are organized and well-planned, 77%, which puts us around the 51 percentile, so we're around the middle. And so I think that kind of goes hand in hand with if they're low in equity, they're pointing that out to us, and they're saying our days aren't planned well enough. We should tie those two together then. Compensation and benefits, I'm satisfied my pay is 89%, which puts us in the 99th percentile. And my pay is fair in relation to my job responsibilities, 85%, which is again 99th percentile. Pay practice administered for consistently for all employees, 92%. And benefits are competitive with similar jobs we might find elsewhere, 87%, which is 95th percentile again. I'm satisfied with my benefits, 87%, 84th percentile. Building leadership, principals effective leader, 95%. I trust the leadership of my building, 91%. And building leadership consistent with administrating policies, concerns, employees, 83%. Department, we didn't have enough folks, it only had a handful, so it really doesn't. District administration, consistent administrating policies concerning employees, 85%. I trust leadership, 80%. District administrators respond to major concerns of employees, 86%. Superintendent presents a positive image to the community, 93%. And district administration doing what it takes to make our district successful, 92%. School board. The school board is doing what it takes to make our district successful, 94%. The school board appropriately balances the mission of the district with financial responsibility, 95%. And the school board presents a positive image to our community at 86%. And when you look at the percentiles, 91 and 87 are pretty close, and then we have a 40. If those top two are there, the third one should be there, so I think that's just going to take some time. It's gotten better. I went back to 2017 and looked, and we've ticked up every year in that area, so we're going the right direction. We just got to keep doing that. Job satisfaction. This is the 4 factors that are most important. It doesn't say we're necessarily doing it. But the top 4 to the staff is having good leadership at 60%, meaningful work 56%, which I thought the school should be number 1. And then you got to remember we got people in different departments. And then healthy culture, working conditions 54%, and compensation salary 51%. And then I always look at the bottom end of this spectrum here: job training, professional development. That's job satisfaction at 10%, and recognition is the lowest by overall by 6%. So I think we just got to keep working on giving them the top ones that they want or need. Overall satisfaction with the financial management of the district, 95% are with that on that. All things considered, district a good place to work, 96%. Community supports education, 96%. The district has improved in the last year, 81%. That's down from last year. Scale of 0 to 10, how I'd like to recommend the district a place for employment. Pretty good numbers there. I don't know, was it 4%? Is that 4 or less? So 8.26 average, that's good. And what grade would you give us? No one flunked us. It's good. 52% say we're an A district, and 39% say we're a B district. So, and then we like to compare ourselves to the neighbors, and 42% say we're much better than the neighbors, and 40% say we're better, and 10% say we're the same. So no one said we're much worse. So
One person.
I would just like to say accolades to Stephen, because the technology scores a few years back were nowhere near this, 100%.
yep. Yep, that was a change we made.
Well, all you gotta do is give them no good tech support for 5 years and then give them tech support. They got, yes, I agree with you, I'm sorry.
It was a low bar, but I'm glad
Yeah,
I'm glad that I've been able to jump leaps and bounds over it.
Yes,
Well,
yes, you have.
Well, you raise your bar each year, so you had 100% last year and again
Right.
this year. So.
I mean, it's a long way down from here. Like, it's inevitable at some point.
Well, but I mean, to the school board, we redirected money from Heartland
Yes.
to all our investments and that young man over there, so.
Yes.
So,
and he had a lot of challenges this last year, because when you took over, we weren't 1-to-1 yet. We got 1-to-1 just before COVID, and then we expanded it down lower, and he had all the other COVID challenges, so.
Yeah.
Next year, we expect 120%.
Yeah.
You got it.
Do you have any idea why it was only a 59% participation?
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Anything over 30% is pretty good.
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
You don't think people didn't participate because of limitations or anything? I think it was all done online.
Online, they were here in April. And maybe the bus drivers had the hardest challenge because in the past, the bus drivers would gather in the building. And this year, we didn't have them gather in the building, everything parked out by the buses, so they probably didn't have access to the computer as much. That'd be the only group, otherwise everyone else was here.
Okay.
Was that percentage rate pretty consistent with previous years, the participation rate?
Yeah, it was, there's been years that have had a few more, there's been years that have had a few less. I could look it up.
I also think when they run a really small department, people don't reply because they feel like they'll be identified because of their small department.
Can I hear from the other administrators on this? In terms of every year, the participation is about the same. What would the three of you like to see differently in terms of support to get people to participate? What will it take? This is valuable information.
Well, how
What's
many
the
were there? Was
percentage
there
of,
82?
do we know what the percentage of participation was? For instance, how many elementary participated
Yeah,
and
we
how
did.
many high school participated?
Yeah.
Is that
Well,
there?
that number
Yeah, it was there.
We have more elementary.
Well, it just says how many respondents came from that area. It didn't
Yeah, it
say
said
how
how many-
many of them respond, like, it didn't say 100% of elementary responded.
It didn't tell you what percentage of elementary.
40
We have,
some.
yeah, you know,
It
a
told you
good,
the respondents were they
47 elementary.
47% of elementary?
47% elementary, 30% high school, 16% middle district, well, 4%.
So of that,
4% of district office.
Right. And like middle school is going to be small because
that'd be
middle school is much fewer teachers.
It's gonna be a small percentage of
Right.
stuff.
Yeah, that doesn't tell you percentage of participation, that just,
Means three of
middle
us.
school only really has 8 core teachers. So obviously when you compare it to
3%
the
of.
So
the number of
one-
teachers
That's
in
what I'm
our
saying, elementary is
elementaries.
gonna be your biggest pod because there's the most teachers.
Exactly.
Obviously, they're gonna be the biggest schools responding.
right.
So they do this in one day, or they have a period?
No, they have a window of about a month.
So, the answer to your question, my experience, it's really simple. Food.
Food.
Yeah, food.
Well,
You
it-
set a goal of what you want the organization to be. The hospital, we had 90%.
We got pizza.
We had pizza. If the hospital hit 90% participation rate, which it normally did, year after year, 90% of 600 people took
Yeah, but 80% of the people said that they valued their nutritional interest.
That'd be a healthy.
It'll be
I
a
actually,
vegetable pizza.
Jerry, I wasn't thinking food, I was thinking that our teachers would want to see they'll share the information, but they want to see an effect. They want to see that information being used to better the school.
I think one of the things that Kyle had brought up is that one section where they talk about wanting to know more about different cultures and those kind of things and bring that into the professional development days, I think would be a specific instance of doing exactly what you're describing.
And then my other thought was just how is this threaded with our strategic plan? The school's strategic plan. Do we take the information, do we thread it in there and make sure that we're paying attention to what are the messages, what are the common themes to make this a better organization?
Yeah,
We're
I would
gonna use
agree.
the
I think
information with
it
equity and
needs
we're
to be
gonna-
utilized. The
Right.
data needs to be utilized.
Well, that's
but
what we're
don't you
gonna,
try to do that every year?
that's why we're gonna
You
take,
focus on
that's why I
certain
said we're gonna
sections.
take those sections that were 16 and 32%, and we're gonna use our professional development days to discuss our culture around here with our students' culture so they understand their students better. The other part you gotta remember is it's not a teacher survey, it's a staff survey. So you have cooks, custodians,
Absolutely.
drivers, so it's not,
It's
each one
organization.
looks at the building and the organization with a different lens. You know,
But
the
I-
teachers have one lens, yeah.
As of being a part of the event, as part of the non-teacher staff, I would say a lot of us do not even take the survey because 75% of the questions don't pertain to us. We don't deal with students. We're not with the students every day, and it's like, 94, 75% of those questions that I took it, I probably went middle of the road on all the ones that I have no idea what they're, as far as working with students and that, I don't work with them.
So you went middle of the road, so then the
It could
results
have,
are skewed.
because I don't know.
Right.
So there's no answer and says that I don't know.
So this is, to tie this, I think, to Jerry's point he always brings up, one of the ideas of tracking this data, right? Whatever the data is, and it indicates something. You may not know what that is, but like one idea is if we started tracking these challenges, right? So out of here we pick 3, can't manage 100, and we track them all the time. And when I say track them, we touch them at a few school boards, how's this going? And you're like, well, nothing's really coming from that. No, it's really not turning out to be anything significant. Or you could say, we've really been finding out that the bus drivers really want to meet inside here instead of meeting out at the shack or whatever that's called. I mean, that just an idea. That's a way to, because we do all these surveys and we pull this data. Well, it is an artificial intelligence. You got to noodle on it for a while.
I agree with you, David, except for one thing. That's not the board's job to pick the areas.
Oh, that's fair.
This group's got to sit down and say, these are the 5 or the 6 or 7 areas we're going to work on this year.
I would agree with that.
Right.
Well,
And
that's why we looked at it before the meeting and said, okay, here's the equity where they're saying we need to know more about our students' backgrounds and stuff, and so that's where we're going.
And with the buying of the food, that's idealistic,
Cookies.
But no, but first of all, the administration, the group has to decide what participation rate they want. What's the goal we want to? And then you do everything. So what we would do, again, we have large, more hands to do it. But we reported almost daily back to the department managers, 15% of your staff have taken it. So then they would start going around, we got 14 days to get, you go out there and have you done the survey yet? No, well, I want you to tell me tomorrow whether or not you did. And then the next day the report will come out and you start seeing, everybody didn't get the pizza, it was the departments that got the pizza. So it was department versus department. If the departments, every department got 90%, they got the pizza day invitation.
So it was competition.
It was competition amongst them too. I mean, because we valued this data, this was like our blood that flowed through the organization, through administration to know what we're doing, where we're at, and how we're going to get there. And of course, we were in a system, so we always prided ourselves that we got the highest participation rate. Then the system would give us something too, So it was like.
So like maybe if we tied some challenges into our minutes, and then people see that all the time, and then the staff might start to see that their input makes a difference. Because if we actually do something which was driven by the survey, there's your incentive. Because right now, they're like, it's a waste of my damn time.
That's driven by a whole nother, driven by a whole nother process.
Can I bring you back on that though? Yeah. Every fall, I go over the survey with the staff. I did this last fall because of COVID, and when we talked on Tuesday, I said, okay, I'll bring this up and I'm going to point it out, and then when we get to the one about equity, we're at 32 and 16 percentile. Then I'm going to say, this is where our professional development's going to go this year during in-service days. And then they'll say, oh, we responded to the survey. That's leading where we're going on professional development. So we're there. But keep noodling it.
No, good. I didn't know you did that.
That's what we did in ad team on.
Well, if I knew that.
What day was that?
That's why I asked these questions.
It was earlier this week.
And I would just ask that we be apprised throughout the year of how this is going, these recommendations are going, what's happening with them.
Sure.
Okay, if there is no other discussion on that survey or those surveys, we will move to the 21-22 school operations.
You guys will be for
You want to know?
Yes.
Carl, you might get one. Hopefully I get one, Carl.
So let me read it tomorrow.
I showed you one right already. This is
Not valued.
This is 7, and it lists out all the districts, and then you can see where other schools are in regards to the various topics with COVID. The first one's masking. At this point, it has mandatory and optional. I have us under optional. There's 2 districts that are saying mandatory masking. Then the second category is students testing positive for COVID will stay out, and it's 7 days, 10 days, 14 days. I have a question mark for us under the 10 days, and I base that because when meeting with Gibraltar, Southern Door, and Sturgeon Bay School District, we want to be consistent between the four of us, and we thought 10 days would be the most appropriate. 7 days, if you pick 7 days, they have to have a negative test on the 6th day or later, and usually with 7 days and 6, so then you gotta wait for the test results, and so with 6 days, getting a test result 7th, they really come back on the 8th day, so you're not gaining that much by doing the test. So we did talk as a collective group that will go with 10 days. The third category is we require family members of students with COVID to quarantine also. As you see, most of in fact, no one is picked, no except for Reedsville. So I put us in to be determined in the yes column because I figure if one sibling has it, it's in that household. It makes sense to have the entire family stay home for that. Will you require close contacts to students testing positive COVID to quarantine? And you can see it's pretty split there. I put us in the to be determined under yes, but I don't feel we should be the ones around doing the contact tracing. We can give the numbers and the information over to the county and they can make that determination if someone has to. So my recommendation is that we don't quarantine close contacts. We didn't see a lot of it.
I think I'll let the school nurses do the COVID test. I mean, if you let the school nurse do the COVID test, it's going to totally speed things up. She can take the test into the hospital that day and send it off.
But it has to be. Well, you mean if they test positive?
No.
You mean the close contacts?
No. If a kid comes down with symptoms,
Are
you're going to have. Are they going to be? If you, they're going to have it.
We have a nurse here 20 hours a week. We had 40 last year. We had only 4 the year prior, so we're at 20. And
So that's
it's
a half a day.
Yeah, so, and the clinic is, they're pretty quick getting in over there, so I don't think we should, that's.
Yeah, because then there's an administrative burden, right, to track all parent permission. Because, and I agree with this one parent, we can't be testing kids without parent permission.
No, we will not test.
Right, thank you. And so,
You shouldn't do that.
No,
so then there's
the
a whole
parent makes a
admin
choice to
burden
take them to the clinic or not.
on the new staff we have, so I say we stay away from that. And you can get in quickly to test. If a parent picks them up here and drives in there, I'm betting 9 out of 10 times they can go right in and get a test.
And if 6 months, 7 months from now,
I don't know
it
if
breaks
the
out bad
COVID
again and we gotta do it, then we can
group thing
change
that
as
we
well.
Still going. If there's a member.
Well, then that would indicate how our county's doing. And I think if this blows up, we're gonna revisit all this.
Right now there's 10 cases in the month of June, so I don't see the need to send home close contacts.
I would say.
No.
I don't know, well, you limit it to 7 days, because that's what they fell back to in the height of COVID, that the data showed that 7 days is necessary, not 10.
You can do that, but they gotta get a test done, like I said, the 6th day or later.
That's the recommendation.
Right, and the reason I'm saying my recommendation is go with 10 is because that's what the 4 soups talked about, keeping consistent in the county.
So all schools are staying there currently, as far as you know, they're not changing. Their boards aren't having this exact same meeting.
They're having it at different staggered times, but yeah, but our thought as collective superintendents was stay with 10 days for the quarantine period. And you don't have to worry about, you went and got a test, you didn't, it's 10 days is 10 days, and it's, and then we thought siblings should stay out, and not all districts agreed with close contact. Gibraltar's a little different than the rest of us, but I think if you're close contact, you're still in school. You know, sibling, yeah, you're sharing the same bathroom, you touch your brothers and sisters all the time when you're little kids, you know? That's a different world.
I agree. I mean, it's a different world now than it was when we were panicking in the middle of this stuff. So we understand it much better. I agree with it.
So my recommendation is no masking or make it optional. You want to wear a mask, fine, we're not, no problem. Stay with 10 days quarantine if you're positive. Siblings stay out for quarantine, and then not for the close contacts.
And this was only a discussion item, so you don't need a motion. Is that correct?
That's correct. I can bring it in August and we can vote because
No, we can't give you permission to do COVID as you wait, please.
You can't. Well, that's how we already done it.
Well, there's a
That's how it
standing
will-
order that you guys should adjust the fire as needed.
Right, so this is where I'm going right now with it. Okay.
You guys posted, right?
Mr. Weidman?
I just have a question, and a situation may come up and it may not. Is that a parent decides that their child's going to wear a mask in school, all right? Now, we have optional, so we have students wearing masks, not wearing masks. Doesn't mean, and I assume that it wouldn't that be our responsibility, but if this student comes to school wearing a mask and sees other children not wearing masks, takes off the mask, is any responsibility on our part?
Well, I feel like we made masking optional, the kid's taking the optional, that's between parent and child for not following, right? That's like the parent saying, when you get to your school lunch, you're gonna eat your green beans and drink all your milk.
Yes, good.
As teachers, we're not gonna shake the milk can and say, well, you got, Johnny, you still got 3 sips in there, there's 4 beans left, and your mom said you gotta do both. That's the battle you fought at breakfast and you fight at supper time. So when you go home and mom says, Johnny, did you wear your mask all day like I told you? And Johnny says yes, and he didn't, well, he's lying, and then mom should discipline him for lying, and
But
you gotta
the
do
only
your kid
thing-
when they lie.
To pull the string, could there be an IEP situation where the health situation was such that would we take it on? I don't know. Is there like a?
If it was in the IEP, absolutely.
Yeah, so that would be the one far stretch is if medically,
Medically
everyone
fragile.
agrees that we need to keep a mask on
So
this
we-
child because of the health
It's a
situation,
total parental,
then it would probably be a challenge of ours.
it's a parental
But
responsibility.
we have to take that on.
But, right, but hopefully it wouldn't go in there, but I mean, if
Absolutely.
that,
Yeah, but I just,
Just an
is
exercise.
it reliable
No, it's
if
a
mom
good
says
point.
you're gonna wear a mask and then Johnny gets to school and sees 47 other kids not, so he pulls it off and
Yeah.
Yeah, I would
that's a
say,
bad.
not necessarily enforcing it, but if a parent would call and say, or, reach out to a teacher and say, is my child wearing it? I think that, like any observation, the teacher would provide feedback and say, no, we're not seeing them wear it during the day.
And that's where we're at.
That's where that's.
Yeah, that's parenting.
I mean, there's gonna be a lot of.
What about the parent that then says to the teacher, look, I want you to make sure Johnny wears that mask all day
call that
long?
man right there.
It's
That-
not,
It's not my job.
it's not
My
a
job is
realistic
to educate
expectation.
Mr. Hills, here's the
Okay.
number, call Mr. Hills.
Yeah,
We
I
did
mean,
it.
the teacher gets to have the
All right.
right to say,
Yeah.
Yeah.
we
Well,
can't
that-
monitor.
The
Right,
teacher
you
needs to
can't.
get support.
They can't look at the seating chart and say, this kid has to wear a mask because mom says so, this one doesn't.
You're okay. Good enough. Okay, thank you.
Anything else on that?
No?
No? Then I will look for a motion that would include that regular business. I'll look for a motion to convene to executive session.
Second.
Roll call vote, Jerry.
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried at 9:51 PM. We are back in open session at 10:13 PM. So, you all know the motions that we need, so I'll let you proceed.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll look for the motion on Prem Lama.
Oh, I'm sorry. I jumped the,
So
I take it
moved.
back.
Can we, I don't know how to say this.
Say the
I'd
motion.
like to get away from that so moved. I'd like people to say the motion, so the motion is recorded as they said it. That
I
was
move
pointed out
to-
to me a couple of years ago, and I've been trying to stick with that.
Move to
So-
approve Prem Lama
Full-time
full-time
aid.
aid.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Can we move on, Cindy?
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
good.
motion on Ben Bauman as the full-time speech and language aid.
Jennifer?
Ben Ballman.
Ben Bauman.
The recommendation is Ben Ballman for his speech
For-
and language.
For full-time aid.
I move to approve the hire of Ben Ballman as full-time speech language associate.
Is there a second?
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Pam Lathrop Rhodes as halftime title aide.
What happened to Jennifer Domino?
We haven't gotten there yet.
She's on my list.
No, I thought she was a full-time, she's not? Did I have that wrong?
Oh, yeah, she's Jennifer
we
Downwell,
just
but
haven't-
that's
we
not
haven't
the
gotten
way
to her
they're
yet.
working on halftime title.
Cindy,
Yep,
you're
it's
getting ahead
okay.
of yourself.
Yes.
It's okay.
Slow down, Cindy.
Halftime title associate.
You anticipate.
Is there a motion for Pam Lathrop Rhodes on the halftime title?
Move to approve Pam Lathrop Rhodes on the halftime title position.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Michelle Cormier as halftime special education aide.
Move to approve the hire of Michelle Cormier as halftime special education associate.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Jennifer Domino, full-time special education.
Move to approve Jennifer Domino, full-time special education associate.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And Liz Schaaf, halftime aide.
Motion approved, Liz Shop as halftime aide.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And last, Randy Petrina for the elementary secretary.
Make a motion to approve Randy Petrina for the elementary secretary position.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We have a regular school board meeting on August 19th. We have the annual meeting on August 24th. The ribbon cutting and dedication on August 22nd, and I imagine there will be some committee meetings scheduled in there also.
We'll be having our annual meeting.
In the new
In the
building,
new building, in the multipurpose room building.
in the Carl Schultz Pioneer.
In the Pioneer Room.
Oh, sorry. Carl
It's
Schultz
the-
Pioneer.
You don't have to use Carl Schultz every
Well,
time, the
we should.
Pioneer
All right.
Room.
Okay.
A little jazz
Just
to it.
asking.
Cindy, did you have a question?
Yes, I just wanted to know what the minutes should reflect on the school psychologist position and the middle school special education.
There's no recommendations, there's no candidates at this
So
time.
what do you want the minutes to say?
You don't mention it, you don't say
No,
anything about them.
there's no motion.
Yeah, but they're on the agenda, so
You can say
have
we
to
discussed
something.
them.
We just
We
discussed.
discussed the positions, yeah.
When's the annual meeting, excuse me?
24th.
What's it?
24th of August.
24th of August, annual meeting.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, I make a motion we adjourn.
All in favor, say aye. Is there
Aye.
a second? Oh, wait, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried at 10:17 PM.
Who made the initial motion?